If anything, being black on the internet reminds you that perception is a fickle...
Did you know the US is funding millions of Israelis to kill innocent Palestinians?
Memetics are conversations of real-life lore. This isn't just a Wojak. It's a common narrative of personhood meant to be achieved.
I have a dream.
The idea is then pushed onto a masculine audience, covertly to create a framework that narrates the course of social order.
The zygomaxillary process is all connected, so this entire upper jaw, there's no real way to isolate the zygotes and push them into a better alignment.
On the onset of racism led by these Wojaks, the misogyny of attacks on blue-haired SJW thingy, and then they're just the finest person you ever see. And the fact that we needed a mediocre white dude to show us capitalism doesn't work.
I believe when Trump, everything he campaigned on, I believe he wanted to do. And now he's doing the exact opposite thing of every single fucking
Now that I look back on it, I really, really wish I never got into like politics.
My father immigrated here from Nicaragua, right? Like one of my prized possessions is I have his immigration papers when he came here. So I have tons of thoughts about it, but this was just up, right? It was
Listen, bro, the reason I wanted Trump was because I wanted to make more money. I'm a greedy okay?
We have to ask why the alt-right has consumed the Wojak for violent purposes.
Counting or not counting gang violence?
I have a dream.
Include that bullet when it comes to memetics and the conversation of Wojaks. These are contortions of femininity, and attacking those statures provide perceptional avenues of degradation for the worst people you can imagine.
Guys, I'm gonna do a Nick bomb right over here. Nick bomb.
Hitler, for example, they burned the books of the trannies. That's a W.
When we begin in Britain tonight, where prosecutors say influencer brothers Andrew and Tristan Tate are charged with multiple crimes, including rape and human trafficking.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really cool.
Is Hitler evil?
I'm not going to partake in this group.
See, the internet is a bendable, comprehensive game of new perceptual reason. Well, in the past, we might have had depictions of black people messily eating watermelon. Now we have this. The right wing correlates and organizes a tangible social fabric that allows its messages to reach a broader public through the usage of misogyny and racism contained in these Wojaks. Think blue-haired SJW dunked on by strong, serious man, and then the man in question is just Ben Shapiro, eyebrows on fleek, who's like 1/4 of a man, no slave, or a meth addict with a hammer face smashing addiction. All this to say, throughout this video, we're gonna be diving and discussing the vile reality of lolcow culture, how it's programmed into the internet, and how these methods of control aren't as uncommon as you think. Basically, what I want to start this off with is spectacle meme culture and the internet.
Yeah, I sure hope it does.
Oh, I'm Squidward.
Hi, I'm Renata Bliss, and I'm your freestyle dance teacher.
Like, before we get into what a lolcow is, we have to understand that inherently this practice is a corrupted product of a digital means of communication, right? It's a flawed method of spectacle that has happened throughout a timeline of, I guess, acceptable normalcy on the internet, right?
As a woman on YouTube, I would describe my experience as careful, empowering, brave.
Everyone calls me a f***ing pine cone and says they want to f*** my butthole. It is just so messed up that I have to be a woman on YouTube, you know? Like, if only I had this, no one will be sexualizing me whatsoever.
And for the first part of this, I want to talk about the early digital culture of the internet. And to initially set a picture, to paint a picture, imagine this, right? You're off the 60-second TikTok algorithm, a mind frame. You're in the 2000s, right? With the Windows desktop that's all grassy and whatnot. This was when the public means of correlation was given through blocks of text on certain apps, right? And if anything, the rise of our current communication methods, be it Twitch, TikTok, and Reels, moves pop culture at a breakneck speed. But at that time, culture moved a bit slower, right? Think Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, 4chan, 8chan even, Tumblr. There are even forgotten apps like MySpace that thrived off of this text-based formula, right? However, what revolutionized conversation on the internet was the integration of memes, right? And if you don't know what a meme is, I'm gonna throw a bunch of memes on here. I don't know how it...
If I can jump in on that too, what I find interesting is that the internet conception of meme is actually a very limited format of what it means. Memes really just come down, and memetics, like the formal study, just comes down to like, it's a packet of information that contains cultural context, and you need that cultural context to understand it. Like it's really just these pieces of information. So memes don't just exist on the internet. There's actually memes in ancient Rome. Like there are specific patterns of graffiti styling and like specific forms that function kind of like memes, and they would just be graffitied on the wall. Like it's funny. We've been doing Twitter for 3,000 years. We just used to do it by graffitiing. So like when you go look at like ancient Roman memes, they'd be like calling senators names and stuff on these walls. Like...
And I very much believe King Tut was talking on those hieroglyphics. I feel like that's why they're not decoded. I feel like
graffiti is normally like cool and like outlaw and all that kind of stuff, but then you see something like this, right? Do you think he got to the O and went, oh Jesus, I've totally run out of space? Like, look at all this space over here. He's like, I should have started the whiskers way over to the left. But now he had to put the W underneath. So now it's just like
But my first question to the audience and to you, Aronok, before we dive into the cesspool of degradation that is transphobia and the alt-right lolcow machine, is do you remember initial meme culture and how different was it, right? How did you use memes to conversate in that initial time period?
Yeah, what I really remember about like 2000s meme culture, and even dipping into the 2010s a bit, there was usually a single image, a subject, and that subject had a character, and that character expressed a specific like format of joke, and it was like an in-joke that no one was out of. Versus like now I would say that like memes slowly evolved into just more and more absurdist and most like ironic and then post-ironic and then post-ironic, these like layers of stuff that like if you don't understand the history, a lot of memes now just don't make any sense. They're complete like just random words things. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, I honestly think that GIF sources kind of replaced the format or the purpose of that kind of era of memes, where that kind of era of memes was like about expressing a feeling or a thought really quickly with a single image, and now we just use like gifts of popular media.
Yeah.
Please, Beer, I need this. My mom is kind of homeless.
I feel like Vine really took that format, basically, of public spectacle, specifically with snappy in-group jokes that memes kind of thrived off of, and then like pushed it to the max, right? Made a scroll algorithm around it.
Remember, class, you can be anything you want. I want to be the president. Andrew, try a little bit smaller thing. Bitch, you said I could be anything.
And then TikTok took that and pushed it even further. You know what I mean? Where it's like TikTok edits are really snappy. They're really in your face. They always come with the in-group conversational tone that relates to AAV. Because I haven't heard anybody say twin ever in my life until Atlanta started popping off on TikTok.
Twin,
right?
Where have you been? Nobody knows me like you do. Nobody.
Like there's a whole it's a way to change social correlation, the social means of correspondence between people in a very public and effective way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
I also feel like when we hit on like the appropriation of various cultures, AAV is probably the most common, but like it happens a lot. Where it happens with trans culture, it happens with black culture, it happens with like Latino culture, like it shows up all over the place on the internet. And I think it's because the decontextualization of these apps and stuff makes everyone treat everything like it's just memes, and that's why we see a lot of that, like, oh, it's Gen Z speak, and they're just like, it's just like white kids messing up AAV.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Gonna be toxic. Next time they try starting some goofy argument about
Hey, cut them some slack, man. Maybe they only did it 'cause they bored. Maybe they only being goofy 'cause they bored. Maybe they goofy 'cause they bored. Goofy Maybe they only goofy 'cause they bored.
And I think it's because people just approach these things with kind of an entitlement in a way, you know, and a structure of like, if it's on the internet, it exists for everybody to take whenever, and it creates a really problematic thing where people can't acknowledge that, like, hey, maybe I need to think about where I'm getting my speech from. And it shows up harmfully in cultural appropriation, but it also shows up in the proliferation of incel culture. Looks maxing, you know?
So let's do some of the looks maxes that are sus. All right, we got the eyelash curler. You know what I'm saying? Fraud that positive canthal tilt. All right, so here is what's called a waterline pen.
That's a term that is so common now and so memed. Most people don't know it came from incels. And there's a lot of language that came from incels. Mogging. I'm trying to think of other examples. And I'm sure people in the chat can too. Like chat. Examples of incel words that are now...
Yeah, but what that does, I have to stress to the audience and everyone coming in now, is cement the rhetoric of those alt-right, you know, clauses and whatnot. Like clavicular directly in a narrative reality was birthed out of the internet when it comes to looks maxing, right? Looks maxing came up with this projectional figure of what a man should be, right? The cis white man should look like, right? And clavicular fit that standard to such a degree that he could get traction in the algorithm and media and everything, and in turn spread those degrading thoughts and whatnot. So I gotta say, the power of meme culture and spectacle that we're kind of tapping into right now and trying to get you all to focus on is how it could become a direct means of representation to a public in a very easy and congestible way. And we're starting off like pretty light when we're talking about like the Me Gusta meme, the dinosaur Teleraptor meme, the girl, the girl pointing at the fire. You remember that meme where she's pointing at the fire?
Remember when we all used to, like, everyone at school would, anytime anything was thrown, especially garbage in the can, Kobe.
So even though your career is over in basketball, you're still continuing to influence the game. Almost everywhere that I see someone shoot it, they're always screaming your name after.
That's awesome.
I saw a little dude last year when I was playing say toilet, and then he shot it and he said Curry. That's the generational divide. That's the generational divide. But anyways, to get back on topic with meme culture, right? Memes set the conversation of a discourse, right? That one meme that was like, "You've already lost. I depicted myself as the Nordic caricature, and you're the loser incel," right? That was legitimately like a way to win discourse on topics that you want to demonize on a day-to-day basis. But with online social media platforms and forums such as like Reddit, 4chan, 8chan, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat, offering anonymity and also a lack of regulations around what you can do with that anonymity. Those subjected to harm often socially reflect patterns of misogyny, ableism, transphobia, racism, and every other bigotry that prevails in an everyday landscape, so to say, right? And we need to begin to understand online misogyny and how mediums of communication enable an environment that welcomes the victimization of women who have been victims of this harm and harassment, right? From online hate groups, from lolcows, right? Just a quick quote before I let you speak, Aronok. It says here, crime statistics released by Canadian police, self-reported victimization and the deluge of young Canadians we've seen come to our organizations for help are symptoms of a public safety emergency unfolding in front of us. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, given that social media networks that didn't even exist in 2013 have become unimaginably pervasive among our vulnerable youths, right?
What's interesting about that quote too, to me, is it doesn't recognize that this was going on back in the MySpace era. At my elementary school, it wasn't my grade, it was in one of my cousin's grades, but there was a girl that got cyberbullied so bad that content warning for discussion of suicide, I'm sorry, but like this is an honest thing that actually happened, right? Like 2003, 2004, she was bullied so bad by a group of girls at the school that she obviously passed away, and I don't even think calling it suicide is quite accurate. Like, that's a social homicide, right? Like, that's you create a circumstance.
Exactly.
Like they like catfished her. They did a bunch of horrible stuff. Like, it was really and this stuff has been going on since like the moment that kids started using social media in the 2000s and the late 90s. But I do think it's worth noting that the awareness of it amongst adults and trying to even like have any conversation about the safety really didn't happen until like a decade after these types of things already were occurring. And that quote really exemplifies that. Like, the adults didn't know that the kids were getting hit.
Yeah. And I find it weird how we can recognize this so easily when it comes to things like Skibbity Toilet or Tung Tung Sahor, like these memes, right? But when it comes to the actual social harm that is becoming a consistent culture right? We're not having conversations about that at large at all, right? In our school spaces, peer to peer and whatnot. And I think it's because intrinsically, like I said before, this social harm is a reflection of everyday social life that happens. You know what I mean? Where it's like the men in the locker room having those conversations about those women, sharing nudes, doing all these things that boys are applauded for, right? In a day-to-day commonality. Those people aren't going to be harmed when that woman commits suicide. You know what I mean? Those people aren't going to be thought of as any lesser, and instead they're going to be high-fived by their buddies, high-fived by their schoolmates and whatnot, right? And this is where we get into like a more sickening aspect of a social relation and the real tangibility of lolcow culture being birthed from a cesspool of degradation already present within our everyday landscape. You know what I mean?
I was also just thinking about, like, a lot of people treat the patterns that occur on the internet, they try to exceptionalize it because it makes it easier to forget or ignore how these same things occurred. It's a new avenue for doing harm. But, like, I got bullied before my classmates had social media, and I never really went on social media. So, like, all the bullying I experienced was just inverse. But it creates this horrible new avenue, especially with anonymity, especially with the availability to, like, predatory adults and stuff to target kids. Like, I had a cousin that had that happen to her, where she thought she was talking with, like, a 16, 17-year-old guy. She's 16, 17, you know, at the time. And, no, 30-year-old man, right?
Yeah.
And we don't, as far as I know, again, I'm just going off of, I've coached kids for, like, I haven't coached in a little while, last 2 years or so, but I coached for pretty consistent for, like, a decade and a bit. And from my understanding, kids these days, they're not getting taught that, like, safety on the internet at all. Schools just, like, kind of let kids do whatever now. And parents don't, like, question what their kids are doing on social media, how that social media is affecting them. That sort of thing.
Well, there's a very real incentive for kids to get on social media early in terms of, I guess, opportunity. I would say that presents itself with, like, these short form media algorithms. I've seen some TikToks of, like, kids going around in their school specifically and just videotaping and doing those little jokes and whatnot, or trying to get their viral moment or clips off at school. You know what I mean? And it's so much more different to be a kid in today's society, because I can't imagine a kid trying to get a clip off of the projection of racism that I face on a day-to-day basis. You know what I mean? Or a projection of misogyny placed onto women that this kid learned from online culture would get a lot of clicks. You know what I mean? And expounding that onto the femmes around them in a degrading way. Like, it is a little weird.
I think also just the proliferation of incel ideas but not being said by incels, like the way that it memes outwards, right? Means that things like looks maxing. Somebody in the chat earlier was asking what it was, and I forgot to respond. But, like, look maxing is basically just extreme misogyny culture around how men should appear. It's an upset to the point that people are, like, breaking their jaws with hammers and try to, like, get into. And I'm just thinking, like, generally, amongst the studies I have read, that there is a trend towards increasing levels of body dysmorphia, eating disorders, and disconnect with the body amongst kids now. And I think there's many parts that are contributing to this. Hollywood's extremification of bodies, where, like, I'm sorry, you can't look like an MCU character unless, one, you've been dehydrated for 2 days before the photo shoot, and, like, two, you've spent, like, 9 months with personal trainers, a complete dietitian, like, all your job is to look a specific physique and way. Like, go back and look at, like, 80s action heroes. They got a little weight on their body because that's a healthy athlete's body. Go look at, like, Olympic weightlifters. Those are the strongest men on the planet, strongest women on the planet, you know? Their bodies aren't like these thinned out specific muscle build. And then you throw in, like, advertising culture using way more Photoshop, stuff like that. AI, like, perpetuating very, very specific types of bodies. And I'm like, all of these things compound into a lot of kids that are hyper aware of how they're seen, who are constantly performing to an audience. It's so sad. It's so sad, like, how much pressure there is on kids now for their bodies to look a certain way. And I don't think that that's disconnected from a culture where a pedophile ring runs an entire country.
Yeah.
You know, like, these things all overlap. Like there's a lot of people that were in the fashion industry that are connected in the files for a reason, right? And they created an aesthetic for kids, especially in the 2000s, where it was like crop tops, it was short shorts for like 14-year-old girls, you know? And that stuff's still there. Those pressures are still there. And it's more extreme because these kids are also putting it on each other. They're pressuring each other. The looks maxing thing is just like, it's 90s diet culture placed onto young men as well.
And I was also going through, I did my own video kind of essay live before, specifically on the masculine body horror epidemic I call it, and specifically how it's translated in an era of spectacle related to Hollywood stars, whereas like Arnold Schwarzenegger was the dude that a lot of people wanted to look like and physically be like then, and it's translated and changed throughout the years to fit into this bodybuilding algorithm on TikTok, where men could also project their own perceptions of self onto these people lifting and whatnot, because these bodybuilders aren't just bodybuilders at the end of the day. They don't just post bodybuilding content. They post all these other questionable things. Like one of the examples I had was like Joey Swole, who tries to promote bodybuilding, fitness and whatnot, but along those lines at the same time, he's kind of shitting on women, on feminine bodies if they look the same way mask bodies do when they're bodybuilding traditionally, telling them they should bodybuild a different way and things like that. So essentially with this new era, I guess, of masculine projection, in terms with looks maxing, I also look at those bodybuilders and those fitness influencers who are quote unquote not political, you know what I mean? And you see what they're parroting, you see what they're spitting out, you see what they're spewing, and they're allowed to do this in a lens of normalcy.
It's just a modern era it's a rebrand for 1900s eugenics. That's what it is, really. And there's also a reason why a lot of these guys will push shit about BMI. Because guess what BMI comes from? It comes from a bunch of racist white guys who only measured white men, deciding that all bodies need to fit into this.
And now to get deeper into the conversation, wire this back into the transphobia epidemic, and specifically how transphobic people are used in order to garnish power for the right wing in an online spectacle. Socially, we're gonna go over the story of like Amanda Todd. And if anybody knows who Amanda Todd is, if you're Canadian and was in a grade school around the 2010s, you probably heard of her.
Yeah, content warnings for like grooming, it's gonna be a lot, but it's important.
Yeah. The Canadian Encyclopedia states Amanda Michelle Todd was born in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia on the 27th of November 1996, right? That's only 4 years older than I am, right? If they were still around right now, they'd be 29. Like, they not that old, like a very, very young person when they passed. Todd attended Maple Ridge Secondary School and then Coquitlam Alternative Basic Education CAB. And I kind of also want to emphasize how this also stresses that this isn't just geographically contained to the US, right? The harassment that is experienced online. Like, there is an internet culture, like a congealed internet culture that functionally takes in the worst aspects of white nationalism, the worst aspects of racism, the worst aspects of transphobia, like country to country, and makes it this online community, right? Makes this online community of people that carry on acts that take the lives of people like Amanda Todd, right? She was involved in cheerleading with the Vancouver All-Star Squad, as well as various athletic activities, but didn't feel like she had a whole normal life. Her mother got Amanda some support to help her develop coping skills, but Amanda often felt alone. She would go on the internet to meet new people. And this is my first initial point when it comes to the story of Amanda Todd related to online entrapment, right? Where the dangers of the internet really shine through, specifically when it comes to online third spaces. Because like we said earlier, the patterns of misogyny and racism reflect onto online mediums of communication in a very real way. One of my first favorite internet stars, Lip Gloss, started off as this dark-skinned beauty / lifestyle yapper on TikTok, got to like 100K, and then had a mass hate campaign rallied on her after she garnished enough attention, right? She decided to leave the internet to keep her own peace, but there's a lot of people, especially in this day and time, heavily dismayed by common narratives society kind of instills in us, right? And I think marginalized artists, whether they're Black, Asian, Muslim, trans, or cis, in turn use their art to contort these social realities in their own spaces. And that's the beauty of the internet, I think, too. A needed escape from an in-place narrative of belonging that happens on a day-to-day material level. Like, for example, although my day-to-day educational reality might be white and cis, I could curate a feed where my Black thought leaders feed me informational tidbits every 60 seconds or so for an escape, right? My first question for the audience, and for you, Aronok, for this tidbit, is how has the internet become a place of refuge for you as an artist and as a marginalized person?
I have a complicated relationship with that for sure. As a disabled person, like, finding IRL community is difficult when you physically can't leave the house a lot of the time. And so the other thing too is like when you're closeted, when you have to hide aspects of your your experience, your personality, etc., you seek out these online spaces. And so like I've been in a lot of like marginalized focused spaces when I was like 18, 19, 20, especially because I was cheeks out and I couldn't talk about my IRL. I couldn't really do that type of stuff. And those spaces were actually what like connected me with people who were organizing, and then I started helping with like charity streams and stuff like that, and a friend of mine that I knew, and like I knew at uni, and that like let me first start being myself in a space. I never showed my face until my first video, actually. So there's like 5 years where I was doing like streaming and a lot of streaming stuff, and people just knew me as this like being. Like literally no one saw my face. Like none of my friends knew my face. Like I had it hidden. Partially because I was just also extremely dysphoric at the time. But it did really help me find a refuge and a place that was supportive. And I think people treat the internet as this exceptional thing when harmful stuff happens, but you can just as easily go into IRL spaces and get abused or harmed as you can on the internet as a young person. I think that's worth saying. Like these are not to exceptionalize the internet is to ignore that the internet is always real people.
Yeah.
And it reflects real people. It might create unique forms of harm because of anonymity, but it also creates unique forms of connecting with community because of anonymity. There's kids that are like living in families that are extremely transphobic, or living in countries where it's illegal to be trans. I've had friends that have lived in countries that it's illegal to be trans. The only way they can connect with their community and talk about their like genuine self and be gendered correctly and all those things is online.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends here in SAS that literally they go to drag shows. They might be drag artists and all that, but they can't have an online platform around that spectacle, because if their parents find out, that's the end of their housing. You know, they'll be thrown out and whatnot, or socially casted out of other families. But keep going, Aaron.
No. See how that dynamic can go in both directions, and I think that's worth noting. Like it can do that. It can also be a dangerous thing in the opposite way. Like the internet is a large set of tools that allow for community formation, both good and bad, and the same tools that allow like queer people this space to connect with each other, to learn from elders, to discover ourselves when we can't access it anywhere IRL, are the same things that allow it to galvanize the far right and organize. It's not a simple thing of like internet bad or good. I think internet just as complicated as in real life.
I'm gonna read off some comments from the audience too. A lot of people said something. Meg Leaf said, sometimes I feel more emboldened to call out transphobia and other things online because I can't get fired for it or attacked there, which is actually a very valid way of how discourse kind of surpasses social boundaries of reasoning in order to change an everyday commonality. You know what I mean? And I won't say like this is a widespread thing that everybody's been doing, that everyone's been participating in, but one of the biggest factors of that change I've found were things like Palestine protests, right? And how people were having these conversations online and at the protests, these conversations that they couldn't have in their workplaces and whatnot, filled with racists or people that don't know the history of Palestine or Sudan or the Congo, and learn about it in a very real way, and then take action from it in their own groups by forming unions or forming what they call boycotts or things to that degree. Princess, keep going.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the internet's been so important for that type of organizing too. Like, I feel like it's worth saying. I don't think necessarily. I think it would have happened to some extent, but I don't think that like what we've seen in Minneapolis would have happened without a lot of the way that the internet has facilitated organizing, including the general strike. Like, I think the general strike really helped. The internet helped because like a lot of unions and things were more easily able to communicate, set up, to connect, and to put information in front of people in the city's space. But at the same time, there's also the thank you so much, man. Thank you for using your Prime. But like the same dynamics that allow that. Again, like it also means that like a lot of things are too centralized on these platforms that they can censor what they want. But it also, like we wouldn't see organizing the way we do now without the internet. Boycotts wouldn't be effective without the way they are now. Because boycotts, like you could do them back in the day, but you would need either a formal newspaper to spread it nationwide, or like really complicated organizing apparatus that we see in like the civil rights movement. Or not that it never happened, it's just like this makes it easier. Way easier to post on Instagram than to like have to do 50 phone calls to 6 different cities to get every group in order.
Yeah. Princess Blanket said, well, I'm a black queer woman and I do belly dance and Iraqi dances also. And the internet has connected me to black femmes who do it too. That's so cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Lee said,
I love band.
But I can also find people based on interests and spend a lot more time vetting them from a place of safety before letting walls down. Yeah, that makes sense. Diara said, disabled, found info I would have never been told about health and history. But I've also been exposed to more eugenicist rhetoric, especially since 2024 to 2025. Hand in hand. Arbizo said, it hasn't so much been a refuge for me, but I met my partner through the internet, and I've been able to help her come to terms and explore their gender identity through that. Aww.
I love hearing stories like that.
Yeah.
It's so sweet when people can connect.
Are you a U-Haul relationship? Did y'all like did y'all immediately like click? Like yeah.
God, Pen and I really are like the U-Haul like stereotype.
Yeah.
We got together and then Pen was just like staying at my place like a good half the time, if not most of the time, like within the first month.
Mm-hmm. Lev Darko said, my family disowned me for being queer. Now I'm in the shelter trying to secure housing. Holy hell. But those are also
Do you want to talk about that directly, or like I don't know, because like the reason we live together is a similar dynamic. You don't have to do any specific.
I was gonna reply. My like the aspect of being queer and whatnot, commonality. A lot of stories that kind of get casted aside are the quote unquote worst of them. You know what I mean? That's what 80% of marginalized people are going through when we're talking about these issues too. Like when we talk about like black people, we're not talking about Barack Obama. You know what I mean? And the black struggle, we're not talking about the specific petite bourgeois in Atlanta that have some sort of material wealth and funding for their areas. We're not talking about those people, right? At a collective, on a national level, even I would say continental level, right? That experience of being pushed out because of a normality of homophobia is a real thing. And those who are the most marginalized, be it those who don't have the most social safety nets around them, right? They get those the worst. Whether it's you'll have the cycle of poverty being repeated by this trauma of us not taking marginalized issues seriously, while pointing the finger that it's very much like our problems for being the way we are or doing the things we do. and whatnot. And I have to say, in a lens of social inference, like, you're not alone. You may feel like you're alone, but please reach out to the people around you that love you, like, or people in general, because people are always there to help in some sort of way, shape, or form. Other
Other
people
cities also have queer housing programs. A lot of cities do. It's not always easy to access. I'm not going to pretend like they're all magically perfect or anything. It really depends your region and where you are. And I'm not going to. Please don't share that info, obviously. But like, I mean, you and I are literally doing these streams to try to raise funds. We haven't talked about this at all on the stream. We're trying to raise funds to help us with housing. So if people want to help, because we need help with housing costs and stuff. So, and like, the last while has been really rough. I don't even want to talk about most of that's happened to me in the last like 10 months. It's been nightmarish. But like, most recently I got sick for like 2.5 weeks, like horrifically sick, and my partner was too. Neither of us, like, it was bad. Turk can attest, they were living like bedridden. We were not doing well. Yeah, so if you guys are enjoying our conversations and stuff and want to help out, please donate. But also, like, please donate directly to trans people in your area, to trans shelters in your area. There isn't enough resources for the queer community when queer people get kicked out and stuff. And like, I've been saved by friends several times. I have saved many friends with the last dollars in my bank account to keep them housed before. Across the last like 10 years, so many people. And it's sad because a lot of it is really just like our own community is the only people that help. We pass the same $5 around.
Yeah. The goal is in the pinned. I put it in the pin, so if you want to donate, it's over there. But also sitting here and helping and talking,
yeah,
and
just being here helps.
It also helps a ton. So like, don't be
that gets us advertising. Yeah, like
don't be worrying too much. Don't be worrying too much, because there'll be videos going up and whatnot after the fact and everything. But
please share it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And continue.
Also, oh no, you go first. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna continue with what we were talking about.
That's what I was just gonna say is I just put up a new Patreon post about Stardew Valley and Clint being the new romanceable, and how the f do you handle writing that when they're going to grade as being a creep and a misogynist? So yeah, if you want some like exclusive writing, I'm putting up a lot more writing on the Patreon. So and I know Turb's got stuff on their Patreon as well, so consider supporting that way if you want. Anyway, sorry, I'll stop the shout note.
All right, someone said I don't even see the pin. Give me 2 seconds.
The pin's I see the pin on, like, I'm looking at your chat right now because I wanted to see both chats.
You're looking at the YouTube one though, right?
Yeah, I am looking at the YouTube one, so it might be Twitch that's got an issue.
Yeah.
But YouTube's good. Also, yeah, Henry just said in my chat, to quote Mia Wong, put a trans girl on your couch. But, like, actually, though, like, I genuinely... Yeah, I'm like, the homelessness problem here in Saskatchewan has been so bad. Like, ever since I was a kid, it's always been an omnipresent issue, just continuously worsened by the Sask Party. And, like, I truly think that homelessness is a complete failure of a society. If you have a homeless person in your society, like, you've failed. Straight up. Housing is, IMO, a human right, and everyone should have access. And I have known way too many people who have been homeless. I have been way too close to it a few times. Like, I would have been able to couch surf, thankfully, but not everyone else... Like, not everyone has that, and I think if you can and a friend of yours needs that help, like, you should.
Yeah. But continuing with Amanda Todd, to wrap this back into internet spectacle, because the broader conversation of this video is how internet memes and meme culture have basically demonized and caricaturized a caricature of femininity that is easy to attack. You know what I mean? And a lot of people have consumed that and used it as a basis of their content creation, their platforms, and how they even work as a person on the internet. When Amanda Todd was in grade 7, she and friends would use a webcam. She started to get messages from strangers who flattered her, telling her she was stunning, beautiful, perfect. As she would stare later in her cards, they wanted me to flash, so I did 1 year later. Todd was 12 years old when she bared her breast for the webcam stream. A pedophile who stalked girls online saved frames of images and sent Todd a blackmail message on Facebook. And one thing that I have noted here is that pedophile lived in another continent, right? That pedophile was Dutch, right? It's scary how big the internet can be when it comes to people capable of doing harm, right? However, we have to understand the same means of harm isn't anything new. Like, we've said, right? We know what guys have done in locker rooms, right? Proudly displaying nudes and whatnot. Men socially are applauded for acts like this, and it's a huge reason why a reflection of internet climate concerning digital relations happens in this way, right? But anyways, he then threatened to send the topless picture to her friends unless she gave him a show. He knew her address, school, and the names of her family, relatives, and friends. Todd refused, and the image appeared on social media and a blog TV live streaming site. During the 2010 Christmas break, the police came to her home and informed her that picture was being widely circulated on the internet. Fellow students ridiculed and ostracized her, right? And this is also a big part of the conversation that I keep trying to nail on the head, how it's a reflection of social scrutiny, right? Everyday means of social scrutiny. Like when a dude in that grade 9 locker room gets that photo of that woman and starts distributing it, right? They're the person that is applauded, whereas this woman is slut shamed and shamed in a social scrutiny. You know what I mean when it comes to that. And it's becoming a little more scary when we're even delving into the territory of like what people can create porn of, and AI porn, and how even regular influencers, when they upset alt-right wing people like Asmongold, how quickly they'll have AI porn of themselves out there, and readily available for a public to consume. But keep going, Aaron.
I've had people. I have not looked into whether they actually did make it, but I've had people claim that they made it of me. I'm like creep stalkers and stuff. So I'm pretty sure there's AI porn of me somewhere on the internet, unfortunately. But also, like, I know so many other women in content creation, including women with tiny followings. I'm talking 3,000, 4,000 followers on YouTube type followings, where like they're like one of them uses a PNG tuber, right? And the character of that PNG tuber, they've had like this guy make like AI porn chatbots of them.
Oh my god.
And yeah, they messaged me about it, just like asking what the f to even do and like how to process it and stuff. And it's just like, it's become such a common conversation between I and other women in this space. And it's like, as a victim of sexual violence, there's something really, really awful about knowing that people can just do that to you whenever. And being a woman in the public eye has like really made me question a lot of people's feelings of entitlement to make porn of stuff. You know what I mean? Without any consideration of like how that might make the people they're depicting feel. Also, this music is like way off the vibe of what we're talking about. Holy shit. Sorry. It like became like really jaunty and happy like right as I started saying that. Worst possible time. But as I was saying, like, it's become so common. I know so many people who've, thank you so much for the donation, Henry, that, yeah, like, if you're a woman and you make content online, the chances are it's going to happen to you. And it's also, I think it's a way of making women hide ourselves from the world. And it makes me so angry that this is just normalized now. And I think it's also just that type of, like, I don't think that the solution is women should never ever get to take pictures of our bodies nude, you know, just in case someone hacks us or something. Like, that's the issue. Isn't women, and that's just victim blaming. It's a repackage of the like, oh, what were you wearing?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
And the fact that
Go ahead.
to add on to that, like, this guy came back, right? Like, it says here, after a year, the blackmailer resurfaced. He created a Facebook page that used the topless picture of Amanda as a profile image and had sent it to her classmates. One of more than 700 messages he sent to her via Facebook, YouTube, and Skype said, "You already forgot who I am, the guy who last year made you change school. Give me 3 shows and I'll disappear forever. If you go to a new school, have a new BF, new friends, new whatever, I will be there again." So
the way you see an idea in your mind and shape it into something that could only come from you.
I'm so sorry.
This is how website creation should be. Wix
Harmony,
the new way to create.
I do not know where it came from either.
That was wild.
Yeah. But anyways.
And as someone just put in the chat too, in your chat, Blanket said, "We have so much money in America as a nation, and somehow there's enough money for genocide and wars, but never enough for affordable housing. To take events that have occurred this week, there is money to bomb school children in foreign countries. No money to give a school lunch. The budget for one of those bombs could probably feed most kids for like months. Like I don't want to know the exact number, just because I feel like that's just too horrible to process. But like that's the reality. And it's also, I think this last year has really exemplified the lie that maintains these systems, which is that, oh, we don't have money, and then the instant there's awful $2 billion to the Israeli defense budget.
Exactly. And to delve deeper into that story, Amanda Kuehl was then, every time Amanda moved to these schools, and that same, tactic was used against her, where this guy sent the videos or photos to all of Amanda's classmates. All that happened was Amanda became ridiculed more and more at schools, right? You would think that there would be an extent of solidarity, you know what I mean? But fellow students, it says here, called her a porn star and a cam whore, right? She said that she would never be able to erase the picture from the internet, and as she later stated, it's out there forever. I cried every night, lost all my friends and respect people had for me again. Then nobody liked me again. Name calling, judged again, right? Eventually she committed suicide, and she wasn't the only one instance of this online bullying or harassment, a loop that happens, right? This is an article from the Canadian site of Child Protection called Amanda Todd's story foreshadowed the harms that today's kids face. Why did we fail to act, right? By the spring of 2013, the tragic deaths of 4 young Canadian girls over the previous 3 years, Amanda Todd, Raheda Parsons, Jenna Bowers, and Kimberly Proctor, had thrust the realities of online harm and violence into our consciousness. Their lives were all cut short in part due to a common threat: technology and social media. The public outcry over these deaths led to a series of emergency meetings in Winnipeg between then Prime Minister Stephen Harper, the families of these poor girls, and the organization Canadian Centre for Child Protection. And they wrote, today's sexhortation crisis, which is increasingly targeting Canadian boys, was explicitly foreshadowed by the story of Amanda Todd a decade earlier. And yet, despite the few measures that eventually emerged from those meetings in 2013, such as the creation of a new criminal offense for the non-consensual distribution of intimate images, nothing has changed to proactively address the source of harm. Oh my god, thank you so much for rating. Audra Rains just rated with 83 viewers. Oh my god, now we're at 120. Thank everybody for being here, by the way. If y'all want to help with the stream, because this is a sort of subathon, unofficial subathon, sub to the channel, and there's also the Ko-Fi rent stuff that we're raising money for. If you want to donate there, it's linked, it's pinned. But thank you so much, Audra. My heart's so much. I'm live with my roommate and sibling, Aronok. They use she, they pronouns. We're basically talking about the transphobia epidemic, how it relates to public spectacle, and how these loops and patterns are a part of an everyday reality of online feasibility for everyone at this point. You know what I mean? Thank you everybody in the chat saying yeah. But anyways, to continue on with this story, nothing has changed to address the source of harm. The digital spaces that give anonymous offenders direct 24/7 access to our children. The hundreds of reports we've received from the public this year alone suggest offenders are taking advantage of our laxity around these platforms, targeting children largely on Instagram and Snapchat applications that virtually all school-age kids interact with daily. By the way, this article is written like 4 years ago, so at this point you could throw things like Instagram Reels and TikTok on there, you know what I mean? Just a few months ago, Daniel Lintz, a warm and loving 17-year-old boy from the small town of Pilot, Manitoba, died by suicide after being blackmailed online by an anonymous person threatening to distribute intimate images of him to his friends and family. Right? Unlike in all other industries in this country, our laws impose virtually no product safety standard on social media platforms. There are no recalls if the design characteristic of a platform or a website is shown to harm our children, or at the very least pose a risk. Instead, even as the reports of online harm continue to pour in, the discourse is overwhelmingly focused on what parents should do to protect their kids, as though the harm is inevitable. few are seeking accountability from those at the helm of these apps that allow for such predation and harm. And what I want to segue into too is how a lot of these apps have took the, you know, free speech narrative and enforced the solidification of this normalcy of degradation, whether it's women, whether it's racism, whether it's transphobia. I said that twice. Sorry, I said what I meant to say twice. But in these forms, right, on different platforms, Twitter is probably the biggest example of this. But if you go on apps like TikTok, if you go on apps like YouTube, they don't really consider black feelings, black voices, and things like that under their quote unquote free speech policies. You know what I mean? Transphobia is sort of geared towards transphobic creators or platforms parrot these ideals and make them more and more of a norm. And I've been yapping for a while. What do you think of that?
I've tested this. If you go on a blank account, or if you go in incognito mode and pull up YouTube, go look up trans and tell me what the results are. I'm not saying that everyone's going to get the same thing, because it might be like regional, there might be other effects, but you'll probably see transphobic like Joe Rogan clips and stuff. If you go on a blank account on YouTube, it was actually really, because I sometimes go, I like to do incognito just so I don't have to delete stuff from my history, because if I'm looking up a bunch of like clips for editing and things, my recommendeds just become like useless. So I sometimes use on incognito mode with like without a signed in account, just so that I can like search up like this scene from a film or this meme or whatever to download for editing. And most of the recommendeds are like AI slop. And honestly, I think it's a testament to our audiences and to ourselves that we managed to find platforms at all, because these platforms do not care about us. And like Twitter, you know, Musk buys it and he talks this big game about, oh, we're doing free speech now, but like Twitter is the most censorist of any of the platforms now
app on the platform. Like,
Twitter's a Nazi bar. Twitter's a Nazi bar, and I refuse to call it X because he doesn't deserve
like if you're not screaming like damn KKK insignias like at 9,000% at the top of your lungs, you are not getting over 500 likes on that platform. Like Twitter is definitely so far gone from what it used to be, right? And it's a little sad, because Twitter used to be this harbinger of discourse in the same way I see like TikTok being for a marginalized community. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people would find out information, whether it was like communal deaths, whether it was like updates on police brutality cases, things to that degree, like on Twitter. You know what I mean? And Twitter has made it so the headlines or tweets are just the most clickbait things possible for an algorithmic retention, right? So they will purposefully be like N-word this, transphobia that, because they know they'll get those clicks. It's just like the BAFTA Awards situation. You know what I mean? Exactly like that. Just a way of creating discourse for website traction. But yeah.
No, it's like I personally think that Twitter. Sorry, I just like was aware of my voice and I was like, just worried. But I think, you know, what people need to understand is like Twitter's a fully captured far right platform, and if you're like, it's a Nazi bar. It's a Nazi bar. It's how it functions. And the algorithm on there is always going to push the most far right position or the most extreme position. But even before it was purchased, the Twitter algorithm, and to a lesser extent, like Blue Sky rewards this less, but it's still definitely there. We're seeing that right now with like trans women becoming the most blocked accounts on the app because everyone loves transphobia and the New York Times for some reason. But like the reality is these websites only care about engagement. If all you care about engagement, right, what's the thing that's going to keep people going? What's the most engaging emotion? The easiest to ping and the easiest to set up? It's anger. And like, unfortunately, you either ignore this and you do not get the reach you need, or you engage with it and it perpetuates the cycle. That's why I try to be very careful about how I approach certain topics, and I generally don't. It's like, I actually think it can be good to not clickbait, but to use the format of clickbait to honestly reflect what you're doing, and then like pull people into deeper conversations. That's what a lot of us do. It's what Feek does, it's what you do, it's what Foreign does. Like, all of us do this because we understand that we're trying to weaponize these algorithms' worst parts against them. You know, you present outrage and then you actually do nuance. But a lot of people just present outrage for the outrage. And
to segue into that, this is also where we get into lolcows, right? And actually talking about what a lolcow is and how that functions in a very real sense. It's beyond critical to examine how we use caricatures of memes in order to translate harm onto others, right? Instead of Amanda Todd becoming a teachable moment for the years of internet history to come, she became one of the first memes in public spectacle, right? There's an article here titled "A Suicide Squad Amanda Todd" that basically talks about how this meme went viral on the internet. And I know it's hard to think about memes on the internet as being like these stagnant things that carry on over time. But in the age of the 2000s, right, before TikTok and before the Vine algorithm, something like this would stay around for a while. You know what I mean? Amanda Todd became a punching bag specifically for a whole bunch of these creators who wanted to be edgy and get like a word off and whatnot. And you could read about that over here more so. But there's one video that Aaron wanted us to watch. Really want to get into this before we start talking about Kiwi Farms and a lot of the other intricacies of the internet. Could you tell us about this video before I click play?
This video is by an animator that my partner really likes named Voon, and it's a short film. I'm going to give some content warnings. There is the use of the R slur at one point, but again, I want you to go into this film understanding these are neurodivergent people commenting on how ableism functions on the internet, not like... It's an honest depiction, and it's an honest conversation about this bigotry, and I think that like that's valuable.
Children's cartoons.
These were the ingredients chosen to create the perfect
Lolcow.
But Professor Utonium accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction.
Unmedicated schizophrenia.
The Who Sparky seems like he's doing well.
Most people don't know this, but the world is going to end in 95 days.
I tried to warn them, but no one listened. Now they are all dead.
But fear not. DJ the Monkey came to our world to save us. There's this TV show called Happy Fun World. It's one of my most favorite shows.
Okay, pause real quick. I love how this video too is a conversation of public spectacle and how we relate to editing and whatnot. Like this is someone that's very tapped into the dichotomy of the internet and how to relate concepts to a Gen Z / millennial youth. You know what I mean?
I think like you can see from that opening that it perfectly understands the meme culture that is directed at lolcows. Again, this is a depiction, not an endorsement. I hate that we need to talk like that now, but I feel like a lot of people on the internet kind of struggle with the distinction between those two things. You know? So I would hope our audiences don't, but I just want to be clear about that. Like I think a perfect example too is just like the way that it uses Satanism in that starting edit, because again, this is like an in-universe lolcow video where it like uses schizophrenia in this casual way, but it's like it just shows exactly how Satanism functions in lolcow culture. And it just like nails the editing style, but also like you can see like little bits of like, because Voon's just like a really talented animator. You should go watch their like animations. Again, heavy topics, very honest, very human pieces, but yeah, it's...
Take this slanderous libel down at once. Marla is not a stalker. She's a historian, filmmaker, and my friend.
You are a delusional lolcow.
What's a lolcow?
I'm not sure.
John says you're just filming me to make fun of me online.
No, I'm helping you spread the word of DJ to the masses.
I knew you were my friend.
He can't film today.
Get out of my way, John.
He isn't here. He's been hospitalized. I found him wandering on the side of the highway yesterday evening, naked.
Like, naked, or like underwear naked?
This isn't funny. You're making his mental illness worse.
I love how the medium or the video was playing with the aspect of surrealism, using Gen Z satire,
meme culture.
Like meme culture. Like in order to convey like such a serious story, because this is really how, you know, but this is really how like they project their narrative fantasy or fiction onto this person, right? And like the edits highlight like the emotional stimuli connected to getting more and more clicks and likes off of farming this person. You know what I mean? Like those snappy edits and everything, like those pop-ups, those ripples of reality. Like there's really a two-ness with how this person is acting with this. But like, I'm loving it.
It's a very earnest, it's an uncomfortable depiction, and it's why I wanted to use it, because I think like, it perfectly understands and depicts all of how lolcow culture functions without using real people as the victims. You know what I mean? Like, these are all actors, this is a fictional piece, and I think it manages to say something a lot more honest and earnest about, like, how lolcows hurt people than a lot of, like, more documentarian methods have done. Yeah.
I also have to say, Ree is in the Audra Rains is in the chat right now. Thank you so much for rating earlier. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for rating. Yeah.
Thank you so much for everybody here too that just got here or is just coming in. We're correlating this to the conversation of transphobia, misogyny culture, racism culture, specifically launched onto marginalized populations online in order to create discourse with the rise of lolcow culture, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you could see very clearly throughout this video how the author and main creator is trying to parallel that across with
I really want to emphasize the author who made this is Voon, V-E-N. The video is called Life Wasters, all one word. And yeah, like I think this is my partner showed me this, and it like really is one of the best depictions of how the internet farms people who are clearly in like genuine distress or struggling with things. And like I'll say this, I've experienced psychosis before, not like this, but I know what that experience is like and how it harms people. And I just can't imagine like if someone. So, like in third year university, I had like a full psychotic episode. I was living in a really abusive situation, and I basically started like, I just had like a mental breakdown. And my friends kind of just like, instead of calling the cops on me or putting me in a cell, they just kind of like protected me at the university, and I slept in the C-Triple-S office a few times. But I was like totally out of it. I was stimming to the point that I bruised my collarbone like this. And I just can't imagine like what would have happened to me if someone had been filming this like worst moments of my life and then put it on the internet to a fandom built on ableism and transphobia and hate just to mock me. And like I just there is a huge empathy gap, and I like how this video plays with subjectivity a lot.
Yeah.
Like you have these layers of cameras, right? You have the out of fiction camera, and then you have multiple in fiction cameras that are all depicting each other, and like this overlay I think really creates a sense of like uncomfortable but honest information.
It's also really important when you look at the timeline of how this culture has advanced, because while these were on text-based apps and we're more so on the conversation of text-based apps right now, when it got into that YouTube era, people like Leafy, right, people like H3, people like Keemstar would make videos after videos on these concurrent lolcows present in an algorithm, like whoever they were, right? Like it ranged from the Pokemon Go kid to Jacob Sartorius. You know what I mean? Like on a day-to-day level, that same culture thrived even after the lolcow.
You'd be bored. It's engineer talk.
I know math and science stuff. I got an A in calculus.
I got an A in calculus. You know, you are pretty funny.
Hey.
You're not gonna believe it. Come on. DJ came in his chair IRL. Where's your camera?
I can't make the movie anymore, okay?
Why not?
There's a lot of people online that don't like you. I don't want them to leave mean comments.
Oh, please, Marla. When those infidels see their new god, DJ the Monkey, they will bow down to us, along with Miss Marla, their new prophet, once we save it. Now, let's go meet DJ.
I really can't, okay?
Marla! John, leave her alone. No. What are you doing?
Get the heck off our property.
Is he upsetting you?
No, I'm not. No,
that was assault! That was assault! You just assaulted me!
I did not.
Lou, call the police! Call the police!
Don't call the police! No one.
Did you hear that, everyone? Never give up on your dreams.
Of course you do. Never give up on your dream.
Sparky, the movie I was making, it wasn't to help you. I was just making fun of you.
But I thought you were my friend.
I'm sorry.
Stupid!
You are an evil.
A little bit of pain that exceeds the amount of pleasure, and it's something
Really busy right now.
as wanting more of that thing. Okay, so
It's 11:30. Can you take a break?
No, you don't understand the kind of pressure I'm under.
To some extent,
Like water block.
I've said before, when you engage in an activity or when you ingest something that increases dopamine, the dopamine levels go up, to substantial financial degree.
Oh, hiya, Marla.
Right. Yeah, that was
a
the
very
short
dark,
film.
very honest depiction of these people.
Yeah.
And how they function. And I love that twist ending that like the DJ creature is actually real.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it plays with subjectivity really well. I think the cinematography is really but I think the biggest thing that sticks out to me is just how much it captures different elements of harmful internet culture. Like the boyfriend, the sexist ass boyfriend that's like looking at Teslas and watching Macho Man podcasts and won't give her the time of day. It's like all of these people are being harmed by and participating in these harmful cycles. And like I also like it does a good job of depicting earnestly self-harm stims and things like that in that last moment, the sort of panic attack breakdown. And I like that it doesn't pull its punches with that protagonist, but it also depicts them as an entire person. Like even in that last fight there, you get a little bit of misogyny from the roommate guy too. And it's a powerful, very uncomfortable, but very earnest short film. And I think if anyone missed sections of it, it's called Life Wasters. It's by Voon. I'll put the name in the chat and the link.
But I was kind of looking at how the sorry, I lost my thought.
No, it's okay.
Thank you so much.
It's a heavy piece,
Thank you so much for being here, by the way, Hariana. I just saw you.
Here?
Yeah, yeah. But I was
should go watch her videos, just saying.
Yeah. Throughout this video, I was thinking a lot about how much hands are in the pot of this whole process too. You know what I mean? How one person could literally cause this much amount of harm. Even like there's a very real outlet for that on the internet. You know what I'm saying? But like one pair of hands could edit this video, type this thing, and make that person a lolcow for the week for whatever reason. You know what I mean? And I think that's very indicative of how this continued culture has been able to flourish on the internet and even in general. How we had directly after this film, people like Leafy doing that formula, people like Filthy Frank doing that formula before they turned into Joji. People like the most popular commentary YouTubers kind of using that formula of picking this one person I could pick on, I could get my hands on and whatnot. And I know, and I'm so sorry, iDubbbz, if you watch this video, because I know you watch some of my videos sometimes. I love the way you pivoted, fam. But the ways people, iDubbbz, probably the biggest example I can point to when it comes to the aspect of content cop and which people were being blamed, how that kind of discourse was being facilitated, specifically with Tana Mogu. Even though I don't think Tana Mogu's the best person, Tana Mogu does not deserve a white person walking up to them and saying, "Say nigga," you know what I mean? Like no, like you don't deserve that. I don't think so. I don't think anyone deserves that. I don't think anyone deserves having the R word yelled at them multiply and having that become a stance of correlation with whenever they're mentioned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a very real practice, but yeah.
I'm autistic, and like when I was a kid, lolcow culture, as well as shows like South Park, Family Guy, like all those things contributed to like a lot of the ableism that I experienced IRL as well. Like these people that mock these disabled people, the mentally ill people, etc. online, they don't just leave it online. They go and do it to their classmates. They go and do it to other people IRL. It shapes how they behave towards them.
But essentially what y'all need to know about what a lolcow is definitively: a person who is quote unquote eccentric, or a person whose quote unquote eccentric or foolish behavior can be exploited to amuse onlookers, right? And we can't talk about lolcows without talking about the main originator of this harassment campaign trend, Kiwi Farms, right? Which was literally a website weaponized, built, and created to proliferate this culture of degradation and public spectacle that found roots in the internet. By the way, thank y'all so much for being here. Ko-Fi links over there, and subbing helps incredibly. We're gonna start this very soon, but just know they all there. Hearts.
Also a reminder that like we're streaming to raise funds to help pay off some rent debt that we both have. We live together, you know, if you want to help trans people stay housed, if you feel like it. But also, just being here helps. Sharing helps. Commenting especially. Like, I've noticed that YouTube and Twitch sometimes doesn't count viewers unless they message now. It's algorithm change. A lot of Twitch streamers noticed, especially because their viewership would drop from like 900 to 100 because most of the viewers were like lurkers who like lurking. So yeah, if you leave a comment, it actually like increases our viewership count because they aren't just counting like inactive accounts now, which is unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. All right. Starting this from the beginning. You ready?
For those
3, 2, 1, play.
Don't know what Kiwi Farms. For those who don't know what Kiwi Farms is, it's an online anonymous network of people who carry out harassment campaigns against whoever they decide is their target of the day. Their most recent prominent target is a Twitch streamer and political commentator called Clara Sorrenti. This involved the use of a fake terrorist threat and 2 swatting raids which almost got her killed by Canadian police. After not having this threat to her life taken seriously by the police, who almost killed her over it, she was forced to flee to a hotel, and then after that was targeted too, following the work of members of Kiwi Farms to meticulously pick out the bed sheets and cross-reference them in order to find out where she was staying, she has now had to flee that too to stay in temporary accommodation. It is not a coincidence.
Pause it really quick. Thank you so much, Audrey, for the bits. 300 bits. I don't know what that means. I'm not gonna lie, I just started Twitch, but thank you so much for the bits. Gonna click play again. 3, 2, 1.
That Clara is trans. In fact, that is one of the primary reasons she was selected to be targeted with these attacks. And it remains a stain on our political and media ecosystem that these attacks aren't taken seriously for what they are. What they are is transphobic, reactionary terrorist attacks. They follow exactly the same MO and approach of every other kind of terrorist cell. Groups of anonymized individuals, radicalized and organizing online, meticulously planning and using psychological warfare to silence anyone who stands in the way of their agenda. In the form of Kiwi Farms, this agenda is conservative, transphobic, misogynistic, homophobic. It ticks off all of the points of an alt-right terrorist group. The same bedrock of ideology which has led to incel and white nationalist terrorist attacks across the US and Canada. It's bad enough that police and media outlets turn a blind eye to their attacks as they're happening now, whilst they're targeting Twitch streamers who those outlets already don't take seriously. It's worse when we've seen that the violence these groups can turn to can escalate to a horrifying degree, beyond the use of police as proxies to carry out that violence. When given the means and opportunity, they will carry out attacks themselves. It might involve dozens or hundreds of them organizing online to carry out these kind of investigations that reveal where their targets are staying. It requires only one of them to have the motivation and the access to weapons to carry out an attack themselves. And as long as governments and media organizations continue to not take these organizations seriously, the risk of that increases. Sites like Kiwi Farms that are used to coordinate these attacks should have been taken offline years ago. That they have not done so is a stain on our politicians and our media. For those who don't know what Kiwi Farms is, it's an online anonymous network
2022
of people.
That's a little under 3 years ago because of the month. It's Kiwi Farms and these harassment groups have killed friends of mine. You know, and other ones I don't know if they're alive because they completely left the internet because of how they were treated. You know, and I've never heard from them again, and who knows what happened to them. I have talked people down because of the harassment they were getting, you know, and I don't know if you ever had to talk someone down, but it is a brutal, traumatizing experience that I would not wish on anyone. And like the culture of lolcowing, the culture of, instead of just disliking someone and blocking them or ignoring them or going away, instead obsessing about them, following them for years, harassing them for years, targeting them for years, right? Like these groups are not taken seriously. The harm they do isn't taken seriously because they pretend like it's this unreal thing, but like people have died because of swatting. People have died. Like and it makes me think too about like the whole rise of AI killing people, right? Like whether it's stuff like the Tumble Ridge shooting where OpenAI, like they knew for a fact this person was dangerous, their algorithm radicalized them, created the problem, created the violence, and then they covered it up, they didn't tell officials, and they could have stopped that shooting. And now 11 people are dead because these companies don't care. None of these platforms care. They don't care about people, they don't care about the harm they do. I mean, like, how many kids need to die because an algorithm convinces them they should? these chatbots, convince them they should. It's a lot, and those are the only ones that we know about. I mean, how many does that happen and nobody ever checks their phone or can get into their phone after they pass and never know that's a lie? You know, like if this is what we're hearing about, like how much are we not hearing about? How much do we not know about? How much is not covered by the news? And like, look, it's like people get their laughs and then they don't care that they're ruining someone's life.
Yeah.
When they do these harassment campaigns and stuff.
And I also have to say public spectacle also is a grandiose statement to those in power. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about like the nature of transphobia, you also have to understand how that works into right-wing power, specifically in an aspect of agreeability to a public that already functions that way, right? Donald Trump was able to be Donald Trump because transphobia is such a prevalent issue in society, because racism is such a prevalent issue in society, right? He was able to run off of an anti-trans agenda. He was able to use people as lolcows, whether that was Barack Obama, whether that was Kamala Harris, or whoever he was demonizing that week. And not to say that I endorse any of these figures as U.S. metrics of U.S. arms of imperialism, but what I'm saying is what I'm saying is when we're talking about public spectacle, we're talking about the way the right-wing party, the MAGA party, uses it, right? And the fact that Elon Musk and people in the cabinet have been a part of this right-wing movement since PewDiePie. You know what I mean? On like meme review, on Reddit forums and things like that. The fact that these people have directly spurred that conversation and then used it to their benefits when it comes to a soft power is something that we have to talk about too when we're talking about the MAGA movement as a whole. But yeah.
And I think the biggest problem is that people can't just like go, oh, that person sucks, and leave it. They can't leave it alone. They don't leave the people alone. Like, when I know someone sucks, 99% of the time, I'm just blocking. The very rare 1% is like, this person has such a massive platform and is actively creating harassment campaigns. That's when I'll talk about an individual. Because I'll talk about a Ben Shapiro. I'll talk about like these public figures who, one, make a fuck ton of money. They're pretty protected. They're pretty isolated from any effect that talking about them could have. But like, a lot of people go, oh, someone's terrible. I need to inform everybody about them. I need to push it as far as I can. They can never be allowed to exist online. And it doesn't really matter whether or not what the person's done is actually bad or if the person's ever done anything wrong. Because this behavior occurs from just someone being quirky. Really, truly. Like, sometimes it's literally just like someone's a little weird. Or just like someone has a disability and they don't behave the way that people expect for an adult, to like literal, like horrible people. But the pattern of behavior is the same regardless of what the person did. And I don't think it's not about the targets, but the targets are so harmed, you know? And like, I don't know, I think it's so much built on this idea that the internet isn't real and that the people on it aren't real people, and it doesn't really matter what you do. And until people start wanting to like take responsibility for what the internet does and how it exists and how you have the potential power to do real harm and take responsibility for it, like, you know, Blue Sky's got a thing going on right now where like multiple trans women are getting mass harassed, and one of them literally had revenge porn posted to them because like a New York Times writer is a little pissed. Like, and it's like, regardless if that New York Times writer was the worst person ever, the best person ever, what doesn't matter. Like, what matters is like, there's a harassment campaign now of trans women. Some of the top blocked accounts on that site now are trans women because of this whole thing. And I don't see any of the people that instigated it saying anything about that harm.
But I have a paper here called Anonymity and Social Pressure, Sociological Analysis of Lolcows on Kiwi Farms. And I'm about to read a little bit from it just to let you all know what Kiwi Farms was about and how it organized violence against people and set a rubric for the rest of the internet to follow, so to say. Kiwi Farms was a semi-niche forum-based website that has been active since 2013 and currently has 139,000 members. Formerly known as CWCKI Forums, Kiwi Farms is notorious for investigative obsession and harassment of online public figures. The site is known for organized mobbing of certain people as a unique form of entertainment, dubbing targets lolcows, or people who can be milked, quote unquote for entertainment. These individuals are often susceptible to being ridiculed for fun, whether or not the person is trying to be entertaining. Kiwi Farms is well known for documenting details of every forum's target life, including family names, home addresses, and contact information. Additionally, the site has been connected to 3 suicides since the birth of the website, as well as countless cases of harassment despite a lack of quantitative data on real-life consequences caused by site users directly. And I have to say that whenever you see numbers, right, there's an extent of dehumanization, but there are so much people. What this says, like when you have 3 suicides from these people, there is a concerted effort of thousands of people being harassed. Like, yes, those 3 people might have died, but how much people have to die before you care? You know what I mean? There is a atmosphere of oppression happening here, but keep going.
I was just thinking about this too. I was talking about the AI thing and how it's convinced people to do harm. Do you want to know why the AI knows to say those things? Because it's trained on these websites. They train these algorithms on these websites. And what that means is that those algorithms will put out stuff that is said on them, because generative algorithms do not actually create anything new. They merely recombinate through a very complex statistical analysis of weighted words what is most likely to have been said based on their training set. And a lot of the major generative AI companies are run by guys who love 4chan, who love Kiwi Farms. You can't convince me Twitter's AI is not trained on Kiwi Farms. We know for a fact a lot of them are trained on 4chan, right? And what is a lot of 4chan culture? Trying to convince people to harm themselves or harm others or whatever. And so it's like people are like, oh, well, why do these AI, again, they're not AI, know how to say these things? They don't know how to say anything. They don't know. They just spit out what they've been given, and if what they've been given is harassment campaign like text documents, basically chat logs of harassment campaigns, chat logs of harm, then what they're going to output is those chat logs. And so I would say that, like, a lot of the times people are like, oh, well, how could this algorithm start like telling people to do this? And I'm like, because there's people online that do that already. And it's just regurgitating. It's just copying and repeating the bigotry, violence, and harmful rhetoric of real people that currently exist online. And you can't separate that. Aroka Knox said, anyone remember Microsoft chatbot Tay in 2016 and how it said a bunch of hate speech? Yeah, perfect example. It was trained on Twitter. Twitter had a lot of hate speech that was not being moderated. Yeah. So what did it output? The same hate speech, because it doesn't think, it doesn't have a mind, it is just a statistical analysis of word weights and their relationship to each other.
Yeah. And as Def
I have
said,
a degree in this if anyone wants to fight me.
Yeah. And as Def said, and people who grew up in that toxic environment are getting into positions of power. Like, why are US government Twitter accounts posting these type of memes? I saw this one account who's running for some sort of seat in Florida. I'm talking about using the Goyim speech and the Goy speech and that specific language of the alt-right. And I was like, oh no, like the popular power you can amass on Twitter off of that right-wing rhetoric is becoming a tangible avenue for politicians to, you know, endorse in and actively participate in too. And that is scary. That is scary. Not to say that...
I also...
Keep going.
Oh, sorry, you go first. Oh, sorry. Aroka Knox said, nobody big in the tech industry learned the lesson from the Tay thing. No, they did. The bigotry is the point. Like, the bigotry is the point. I have extensively studied and researched these freaks that run these companies. One, a lot of them have bought their own, like, they're all drinking their own Kool-Aid. A lot of them believe their own AI is a real AI and that they're building God, and they've secularized rapture speech. Like, they genuinely believe the same shit evangelicals believe, which is why the US government is currently run by, like, mostly by 2 cults. One is the cult that, like, Altman and all the people that put, like, JD Vance is there as a pick from, was it Teal? Yeah, he was Thiel's like little minion. He's Thiel's minion, right? He came from Thiel. Like Peter Thiel put him in that position. So you've got 2 sides, which is the evangelical Christian right, which is always trying to rapture, right? They want to build the rapture. That's why they're obsessed with Israel. It's why they do all these things. They want to create the rapture. And then the other side is that they want to make the technological rapture. But it's like, it actually feels insane anytime I talk about it. And I'm saying I'm not using that word in like a sanest way, as in to mock. I'm saying I have a mental illness and it makes it worse engaging with this stuff because it's like so maddening. It actually negatively affects my mental health. But these guys are obsessed with like bringing about their technological god, the AI, and that it will judge everybody. And if you don't make it, it's the Rocco's Basilisk nonsense. If you don't make it, it'll do a simulation and then punish everybody that didn't help create it or whatever nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, if the public spectacle is there, they got white Jesus. They can do anything with. They can do. They can do.
These guys creating algorithms that push hate is not a mistake, and I think that's a lot of the disconnect that people have is that they don't realize. I just said they are tech accelerationist and all the other alt-right nonsense. Exactly. It's also why they think any sacrifice of the planet is good. It's not that they don't know it's destroying the planet. It's that they know it's destroying the planet, but it's worth it because they'll birth the god that will save them. And that's built on old mythologies. Like, as I said, they secularized a lot of the structure of the rapture ideology that's dominant in the US right wing. Because they knew, like, it's very all interrelated. But to come back to the lolcow thing, part of that is that they train on the websites they frequent. And the websites they frequent are full of harassment campaigns of marginalized people. And it's also why, like, I don't know, it's really hard to... The last file's been really tough, both as, like, a survivor of sexual violence, especially when I was a kid, with all the Epstein news and stuff. But, like, the Epstein files and things really show just how much of the world is run on a mix of racism, transphobia, sexism, and sexual violence. Like, and all of those are, like, overlaying on each other. And these algorithms just push that because they're trained on the places that push it already.
Yeah.
Lolcow culture created violence in a way.
Yeah, and to keep talking about that with this article, this is actually a perfect segue. It says here, Kiwi Farms is well known for documenting details of every form's target life, including family names, home addresses, and contact information.
Your mic cut out for me.
Oh, can you...
I can hear you now. I think your Discord might be set to like too low of a threshold, maybe.
Yeah.
Or too high of a threshold. Yeah. Sorry.
But
I just want to make sure you know what you're saying.
Says here, Kiwi Farms is well known for documenting details of every form's target life, including family names, home addresses, and contact information. Additionally, the site has been connected to 3 suicides since the birth of the website, as well as countless cases of harassment, despite a lack of quantitative data on real-life consequences caused by site users directly. The homepage of Kiwi Farms has options at the very top to see what is new on the website, right? Like, think about this when I describe this. They literally categorized how to harass people based on a set of marginalizations and created a table of contents for it.
It's like
right?
a big table of contents. It's cartoony.
The homepage of Kiwi Farms has options at the very top to see what is new on the website, a tab to find Kiwi Farm members, those who register on the account website, a support tab where members can donate money to the site, a tab to log in, a tab to register. Below this, visitors to the site can view new posts or search for specific forms, right? And the homepage is divided into 6 sections. The first is the community feature submissions, where members can post relevant current events or quote-unquote happenings that are then featured on the homepage to keep people up to date. The second part is named lolcows. This section is divided to several categories, but the common feature is that all threads are dedicated to a lolcow in some way, defined as people whose eccentric behavior can be exploited for entertainment. The third section is dedicated to femme-form users, called the lolcow saloon. The fourth section, off topic, encompasses general discussions of familiar subjects, including art, food, and video games. The fifth section, the autistic thunderdome, quote-unquote, hosts long-winded discussions of news, philosophy, and mass debates on a range of topics. The sixth and final section, titled Interior, hosts a meta discussion about the website itself, right? These categories target individuals based on characteristics, right? Users of the websites can filter target individuals by prefix to view specific types of individuals in chosen categories related to marginalization, right? Kiwi Farms is entirely anonymous, allowing users to post content that is typically censored on common social media and forum sites such as Facebook, Twitter, X, and Reddit. This is censorable from X. How are you so bad? How are you so very rare. You're censored on X. Anyways, Kiwi Farms is often cited by
even X was like it was too far.
Yeah, like Kiwi Farms is often cited by outside internet users as a hate forum, with news articles or commentators frequently citing specific demographics that Kiwis tend to latch onto. According to Jennings, Kiwi Farms is a notorious web farm for harassing feminists, the neurodivergent, and LGBTQ people. Itself has suffered the ultimate harassment, right? And all this to break down why this anonymous culture of the internet is so welcoming to the most bigoted people you can find, right? And this is where I want to get into it. Not to say outside life isn't the most hostile material landscape for a marginalized person on a day-to-day basis, right? But the internet affects everyday conversation to and extends to methods of communication. We talked about this with meme culture leading into lolcow culture, right? And I mean, no one from Canada, like I said before, ever used the word twin. Atlanta itself being a mecca of culture related to AAVE inserted that into our collective consciousness, right? This isn't different from back in the day when people had echolalia stems of certain vines, right? I remember repeating like these nuts every 9 seconds and it wasn't even really that funny, right? It's just nowadays that process is essentially like on crack, so to say. Like we find these bits every 3 seconds on an infinite swipe algorithm. However, to relate this back to anonymity, those same people that were creating racist memes about black people back in the day and characterizing them are the same people that carry on the beliefs of cultural hegemony onto a digital landscape, right? Those meme accounts become farms of minstrel shows or Charlie Kirk clips of debate shows, or at this point Myron Gain clips, who's like the black Charlie Kirk, right? Socially, we're able to somewhat shame racists when you see them in person, at least when like black or trans people are in the room. But when that veil of race is taken off, that veil of projectional adherence to social norms pertaining to ideations of femininity, that masculine projection of control is regularly applauded towards, what you get is a skeleton that sets a rubric to who will be demonized and for what those reasons will happen, right? I mean, they literally labeled us by marginalization in their tabs, right? To reiterate, what I'm saying here is that the person that will get a lolcow sent on them won't be cis and white. This won't be Joe Schmo from Indiana, Utah. You know what I mean? From your grade 7 LA class. It's more plausible that Joe Schmo will go along with that hate train, actually. It looks like the same people who are getting picked on in an everyday setting, like femmes who have their nudes shared, getting slut shamed in an everyday setting. I know multiple horror stories from my high school about that, right? They're now getting slut shamed in a very real and new way. Even if you're not a woman that has provocative photos on the internet, AI porn, right? When that narrative through line of degradation is being carried on by the social normalcy of everyday life, on top of being able to run anonymously, like hands off, well, the market will work as intended because there's a social supply, a supply and demand of acceptable degrading terms, right? And I want to throw this back to you, Aronok, because I know you got some words for that.
I mean, just touching on that last sentence, right? Like the social supply and demand of acceptable degrading terms. The modern rise of the use of the R slur is disturbing. Like it has become so much more frequently accepted, and I think the last 2 years have shown a lot of marginalized leftists that like a lot of people only said stuff because they thought it would get them social clout, not because they actually cared about like the issues or the people affected. Like they don't. There's a lot of leftists that are using the R slur again. You know, there's a lot of leftists that are calling me a tranny. So like, I know you're going to be getting it too in your comments. Like it's telling that is becoming more socially acceptable. I think a lot of people, an uncomfortable amount of our society, it's not that they can't, it's that they don't want to, they don't care about having critical analysis or care about other people. They just go on what is the norms. And it's why I feel like people really need to get that, like, it is actually that serious that you push back on even the small bits of bigotry around you, because you otherwise create an environment where that is the norm. And a lot of these people are, especially conservatives, as conservatives are well documented as being more influenced and more heavily affected by social expectation. So if you create social expectations that shuts that down, it's not that these people are going to stop believing bigoted things, but they will stop saying and doing certain things because of it. Whereas the more you make it normal, the more it happens. And I've definitely observed, like, when I was a kid, a lot of that bigotry, slurs, etc. were really, really, really accepted, and then it got better, and now it's going back to worse. And you and I see this, like, every day. Like, you know, you've talked about how people yell out of their window.
The drive-by words. I know every single black person in the Midwest area or the South-ish area,
or the prairies,
definitely has that same experience of the drive-by N-words. Because keep going.
And I used to get a lot of that in terms of, like, I get the T-slur yelled at me out of the window a lot when I was early in transition. Now I mostly just get catcalled. So it's not like it's sort of just like as I pass, I would say it's like the percentage of transphobia versus percentage of misogyny I receive is very different. And I hate to say this, but misogyny is a lot less threatening and dangerous a lot of the time. I have had the people try to kill me way more often for being a trans person, for being a trans woman, and like getting violent because I'm perceived as a cis woman, you know? And you and I have talked about this. It's, I think, very hard for a lot of our peers that live in these bigger cities or in more isolated spaces where, like, it's not that they don't experience bigotry, obviously, but they just, like, don't know how it is to just, like, it hurts to go outside because you just know. I remember this one conversation you and I had maybe 6-7 months ago where we were talking about how, like, one of the only stores that we feel like we get treated like a person is the weed store.
Yeah.
Because the weed stores are always just run by marginalized people, let's be honest, you know?
Yeah. And to say to that, I've lived in Vancouver and I've lived in Edmonton and Saskatchewan, so I have like a little bit of understanding with how marginalization affects people in Vancouver, in Sask, and Edmonton, and the barometer is my black self, you know what I mean? And I feel like in Vancouver, I was the aspect of queer identity was more so given to me as a person. You know, like in Edmonton, I didn't really feel that hammer as hard, probably because I had a lot of these people around me at the end of the day, but Vancouver was the first time I was kind of by myself and thrown into the world. One aspect of respectability politic was stamped on all the marginalized groups there, right? Like respectability politic was just a must for some reason. I think when you get that degree of, I guess, financial difference between populations, you inherently have a strife for some aspects of marginalized community to reach that material conditions by replicating what looks quote unquote good to a class that has a vast amount of wealth. So I'm not hating on that aspect, I'm just saying it was definitely there. But I will say queer acceptance was so much more of a tangible thing in those cities. You know what I mean? Like the infrastructure was there in the
family. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but the infrastructure was there for it in the schools. Like schools had multiple clubs set up on queer identity. I'd be lucky if I had one school that did in the prairies, honestly.
There's like
schools,
like the USAS does have a pretty good LGBT like group. I think I can't remember what it's called, but it's like LGBTQ.
But I actually do know because Theos worked for USC and Danny did too. So like, yeah.
You know about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like honestly, it's funny because like the uni is like one of the only places in Saskatchewan that's kind of a safe haven if you're marginalized. Like it's not perfect. I was in a comp sci degree. There's a lot of dudes, but like the people that actually like ran all the clubs at the uni, mostly queer, mostly neurodivergent, because we actually like cared about trying to build and care about community because we have those lessons from our own communities, you know? And like I think there's a point where like the entire CSSS executive was all marginalized people and mostly queer. Like it's telling that it's always a queer people, it's always like people of color, it's always marginalized groups that organize stuff because we actually care about senses of community and how to structure them and how to build them. And I think like whiteness is about anti-community. Whiteness is not about building solidarity, it's about separation. And same goes for like cis heteronormativity, same goes like it is structurally about separating people and about not building any sort of connection. It's an isolating social structure for sure. And Akuma said in your chat, even pre-transition, I had people driving by me while I was in high school yelling the T or F slurs at me. Oh, I got called the T and F slur a lot in school. Like, a lot. Like, I think about it and I'm just like, holy, like, the amount of violence that I experienced going to school and growing up.
Yeah.
There was like 4 or 5 other kids that went to my elementary school that later came out as queer, and all of them left that school because of homophobic violence and transphobic violence and like the harassment that they received from our classmates. And I honestly wish I could go back to my childhood self and just be like, get the up, run.
Yeah.
Because honestly, it was so bad, and I definitely deserve to be in a safer space with, like, maybe even just one teacher that cared about me. Like, my grade 8 teacher to my mom, after I had, like, the kick on me again, you know, said, oh, well, if she stopped bringing it on to herself, she wouldn't get bullied so much. That's an actual thing a teacher said about me.
No, I completely get that, because like I would always have like all E's, which is like the best mark you could have in Canada in junior high, which is like excellent. But what I would always have insufficient in is quote unquote paying attention in class, and it would always be like, oh, Theob is such a eccentric kid. Theob is too loud. Theob is too da. And it made me like sit in a class still and just stare while I was surveilling myself in my own head, because I wanted that extra E on my test. And there's a very real aspect of surveillance culture that comes with marginalization, and even to tie this into lolcows, painting people as lolcows, it's to make leftists afraid of living their identities or their aspects of reality in a very real way. You know what I mean? Like, this will, even if it doesn't do direct harm with you, this will control the way you're perceived as a person, right? If you, for a while, if you had dyed blue hair, that was like life or death. You know what I mean? Like, that was for some reason, all because
you
of
want to
them.
know what it is? It's because dyed hair is queer coding, or it's queer signaling, right? And once queer signaling makes it into the mainstream enough, they know that it's queer signaling, and so anyone who engages with it, whether or not they're queer or not, like, gets that like homophobic and transphobic harassment. And a lot of alt culture is really tied into queerness, so a lot of queer signaling becomes alt culture signaling as well. And dyed hair is very much alt culture as well. So it's like,
yeah, this is also
and what I said in my chat, it's a self-imposed panopticon, and that was really how I felt growing up too. Yeah, like, it's a self-imposed panopticon because you're so policed, you police yourself.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're gonna get the backlash and the harm.
Yeah.
And it doesn't instantly go away. I have spent a lot of my adult life trying to unlearn trauma responses that are not helpful outside of the context where I learned them.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I hit the dab pen. That's like,
I am still living with the physical consequences of the violence I experienced growing up, both in terms of like interpersonal abuse and bullying and harassment. My like best friend growing up used to punch my shoulder really hard if I disagreed with them, and my right shoulder dislocates like that easily. I am currently dislocated, and it is that easy to put it back in. But the fact is, like, harm and trauma doesn't just leave you, it leaves physical marks for the rest of your life. It leaves physical marks in your brain. And we know from studies that, like, even just the slur calling thing is traumatizing. It physically affects you. It does. And coming back to the lolcow thing too, like, the lolcow stuff just like harms so many people. Not just the people directly affected, but in the normalization of these bigotries, in the normalization of these behaviors.
Yeah. And
put in my chat, I'll read this comment. I'm sorry.
No, keep going. My fault.
Yeah. What's respectable about respectability politics if it just allows fascists to be extremely cruel towards marginalized people? Bingo. That's what it is. We can never be rude or we get called uppity. I have been called uppity before. Like, literally the word uppity. Like, as if it's like 1920s racism town, even though, like, it's wild. If you talk about the bigotries you experience, like, you're gonna get called an exaggerated, you're gonna get all these horrible things. It's telling.
Yeah. And this is, I was gonna say, a perfect segue into the next section, quote unquote, of the video, where we're basically talking about the onset of Gamergate and how the tactics of Kiwi Farms are the tactics of early meme culture, and the internet spectacle was basically curated onto a video content format, right? And there's someone that has a really good video around this called Zoe Quinn. It's a pretty long video, so I don't know if you want to watch all of it, but this is a video that I kind of want to watch because they wrote a really good book called Crash Override that also explains the alt-right, the rise of the alt-right, and how it has propelled Trump into power that I really liked. So this is the video, just sending it over to you. Person's name is Zoe Quinn, if audience knows a Zoe Quinn. They're pretty popular for a very long time.
Yeah, they've been doing stuff forever. I recognize that name from like a decade ago.
Yeah.
I haven't kept up with their work though, so...
Well, this video was from 8 years ago.
It's 47 minutes, so maybe we just talk about like some major points too. Yeah.
All right, ready to play?
I'm ready.
Okay, 3,
2, 1. Actually, I've written about Zoe Quinn's writing for the Avatar
acclaimed indie developers. She might be the funniest indie developer. She is also one of the world's most courageous advocates for victims of online abuse. With her grassroots organization, Crash Override Network, and with her own writing and speaking, and just personal bravery, she's become an absolute hero to anyone who's been the target of online hate. I'm not going to tell you about the attacks that Zoe had to face down, because you know about Gamergate. You know that, in Zoe's words, Gamergate became a flashpoint, I'm sorry, for the online hatred that helped put Donald Trump in the White House. And you all know that Zoe fought back against that hate, and that she won. She learned to protect herself and to teach other people to protect themselves. It's an honor to have her at PNP, and I'm really glad you all came to listen.
I lost $50,000 because I didn't buy a domain name. My advice, head to Wix and grab yours now. It's quick and it can make...
Thank you for that intro.
I
totally went away trying to get up on the stage, so we're off to a good start.
I
hi, and
YouTube
thanks for coming
Premium
out and
off
supporting
my brother-in-law.
as I sometimes like
I don't get
the
ads.
most depressing OkCupid.
What time are you at? 120?
If you're not familiar with Gamergate,
That's where I'm at.
126 now.
Okay, I will jump forward to 126. Okay, 3, 2, 1, play.
because even if you are, it was kind of a mess of memes and jargon anyway, so even if you're internet savvy as is, it's still like, what the hell is this? To give you sort of the TLDR of it, essentially I dated this other programmer on and off, again, mostly off again for about 5 months, and instead of just letting it go, since it was kind of a really crappy abusive relationship, he offshored that abuse to the internet, like Kickstarter, but for yelling at people that you're mad at. So that quickly escalated into this full-blown conspiracy theory about how I was secretly controlling the entire gaming industry with a shadowy network of makeouts, which is still not even going to be the most ridiculous part of this story, so just bear with me. I'm going to take you into Mordor, but we're going to come out on the Shire. I'm going to talk about some subjects that are going to be a little bit rough if you've been a survivor of domestic violence or are probably just someone who didn't have a good day on November 7th in general. So just FYI, that's a thing in case you want a content warning. What happened immediately. Like, I knew that there was something out there about me before I knew what it was, because there were suddenly all these people yelling at me. And kind of like a kid counting the distance of a storm with thunderclaps, like to see how far it is. It was like that, but with my phone notifications buzzing. And then they would buzz quicker and quicker and quicker until it's just like I had to not look at it. And that first night, all I could do was like numbly scroll down as I watched people go through and assemble this weird constructed fiction.
I'm at 308, so we can still be matched up time-wise.
Yeah, I'm at 309.
This really reflects a lot of the harassment campaigns that I have experienced, but especially the first one. When I was a tiny account, maybe 180 followers on Twitter, and just kind of helping organize charity streams and stuff, and most people following me, like I knew personally or were mutuals, I responded innocently to what I didn't realize was a hate account, asking what the definition of pansexual was. So I just said, oh, it's this. I would receive somewhere around, and this is a rough estimation, 10,000 plus replies on that thread. Now, I was dumb and young and didn't think to like close my account or anything. I had silly ideas about like, oh, you shouldn't block everybody, you gotta have conversation. I was wrong. I was young and inexperienced. I didn't know what I was doing. I was 19, and also like coming out of, like, I was just starting to come out online. I was targeted by J.K. Rowling's fans in particular, a massive amount of them. Now, I'm sure a lot of those accounts were fake, but I do know for a fact that it was somewhere in the thousands of accounts that I ended up blocking. When I left Twitter, I had something like 15,000 accounts blocked. Almost all of them personal, like I had individually blocked them because they sent hate either through my DMs or in my replies. And I had a lot of things go viral. that got me harassment over the years, just talking about transphobia. Like Twitter's probably the worst website I've ever been on. But that first harassment campaign, it was just like, it just escalated and escalated and escalated. And I remember sitting in my bed just having a mental breakdown because of how much it was. And part of why it was hitting me so hard is that all of these people were calling me a pedophile. I'm a victim of CSA. I don't know if you understand what that's like, but to be called the thing that you have, to be called the type of abuser that you've been abused by is horrific. It's a horrific experience. And it is genuinely traumatizing because the human brain is not meant to see that many people, regardless of how wrong of what they're saying is. It is not meant to hear that many people telling you how awful and garbage you are as a human being. It just can't, you can't process it. It took me a very long time to, I still sometimes get like specific triggers around that stuff because of how bad that first harassment campaign was. And again, I had 180 followers and I was 19 and like just a random trans account. And that's how big of the harassment I got, right? Tens of thousands of accounts. That thread had people arguing in it for 8 or 9 months straight in like subthreads. I would see somebody arguing with a transphobe and I'd click it and I'd scroll up and after maybe 200 to 300 tweets, there was me. And I obviously I should have handled, like I should have deleted that post, I should have shut my account down, all those things in retrospect. But like when you're being traumatized, you're not thinking well, you're not processing what's happening well.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of women out there, there's a lot of trans women out there that experience that same type of harassment campaign, and you have never heard of them. I never will, because they went off the internet because of it, or worse, or much worse.
I also want to throw this to how the building blocks of that social scrutiny is coming to light right now with Zoe Quinn and her boyfriend. You could very easily see the way this is going to go down, specifically when you correlate that same history to your friends or other social inferences that you've been a part of in a day-to-day basis. You know what I mean? This isn't a separate story from the reality that a lot of women face on a day-to-day, right? When it comes to abusers who work like this, right? I'm sure like a lot of dudes raise masks or socialize mask, whatever we're coining it now.
I wouldn't say that. People love to do this thing where they say like, oh, you're socialized man. No.
Yeah, but
everyone is socialized under patriarchy and everyone's socialized under white supremacy and everyone knows all the rules, right? If you want to look at me and tell me that like women don't understand the expectations placed on men, or that there's no men that like understand the expectations that are placed on women. No, because all the time these people are reinforcing those expectations, right? A lot of violence that women experience is specifically men trying to force those expectations onto them. I think it's a very goofy and very transphobic concept. The socialized male, socialized female is actually talking points that directly come from a turf, like a turf feminist, right? They're not, and I really hate when people perpetuate those lines because it doesn't really express what the reality is, which is that we are all socialized to understand patriarchy and its function and the way that it affects people and the expectations it has for every gender. And so because a lot of times it pretends like people don't know.
But I was saying for people under the binary of man or whatnot, from grade school all the way to high school, you know what I mean? Like for people that have had a lot of mask friends and whatnot and have seen the inner workings of that social degradation, you know what I mean? That's a very real thing that these abusers will do. They will gaslight their victims, right? As being quote unquote sluts, as being quote unquote like easy or whatnot, you know what I mean? In order to justify that treatment of her. And more often than not, a lot of people fall into line with that rhetoric, right? Because it's socially contrived to be digestible in that way, right? For men to be applauded for gaslighting women and abusing women in these ways, whereas women are degraded and humiliated for being abused type shit. And we're gonna see way more of that as the video goes on. It's nice to see you, by the way, Ducky, one of my mods and whatnot. And Megleaf, thank you so much, Megleaf, for the sub. We're at 6 subs now. Okay, let us play the video. In 3, 2, 1.
Of how I was ruining gaming by existing and having the gall to make a game that quickly turned into threats of murder, rape, anything you can imagine, anything you would find in a Fox News comment section. And everybody that was even tangentially related, and some people I still haven't met, became targets as well. We were all it was simultaneously the most personal and least personal thing in the entire world, because the attacks were extremely personal because it was about me and this fictionalized version of my life that an angry ex had created. But at the same time, I was a convenient stand-in for any sort of anxiety that a number of people had about people who weren't like them existing in spaces they cared about. This rapidly went outside of the gaming industry and became a flashpoint for the what we're now calling the alt-right, but really, these guys have been around forever. I say guys, but it's everybody. When Milo Yiannopoulos put me on Breitbart, and that's really where things started to get a lot scarier, and we saw places like Stormfront openly were trying to recruit a bunch of gamers that were mad at me.
Just you, building your app on Base 44.
And that got very weird. It's still weird. It's like, I don't know if you've ever read Hitchhiker's Guide, but the whole cloaking device in that is the someone else's problem thing, where it's like, you can just park a spaceship on a planet.
I think we're still at the same place. We're still at the same place.
You're just like, this is someone else's problem. I can't parse this. So it's interesting in the process of this book, like going through and trying to do my own autopsy and like being like, oh yeah, right, this all actually happened and it is as ridiculous as it sounds. The worst part about that though wasn't so much the threats, because and the threats were bad, don't get me wrong. Like people were talking about putting dead animals in my mailbox and sending me pictures of my dad's house and calling my dad and calling me, and usually not knowing what to do when they actually got through, because I didn't change my number for a few weeks. And they seemed very confused when I answered, because they'd be like, is this Zoe Quinn? And I'm like, yeah, you dialed my number. Like, were you just hitting buttons randomly? Or they're like, oh, you know your phone number's on the internet, right? And I'm like, they're like, oh. And then they'd either panic and hang up or apologize.
But
I mean, if nothing else, it's weird, right?
Who in my generation are very comfortable doing awful when they know they have no consequences, and then the instant that they actually have to interact with someone, they're like, oh.
Yeah. That anonymous nature of the internet only lasts for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And then you meet somebody who could actually, I don't know, do something.
they fall apart.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, play.
Calls people, God. So there was that component of it, and it was hard to face other people that became targets as with a tenuous connection to me. But the sadder part for me was going through and seeing all of these institutions that were in name supposed to be the sort of thing that is there to help completely fumble spectacularly and usually contribute to the problem. I had to deal with too many members of the press just simply reporting on the false accusation that I had, if you actually look at what would have taken this for this to be true, that I had traveled back in time to sleep with a game reviewer that worked for a website I had already written for, so I obviously could not have gotten that connection any other way. Slept with him to get a review of my game that never existed, and the game was also free. And also, why did I set my target for Kotaku and not like the New York Times or something? Whatever. Basically, I'm a time-traveling hoe, is more or less what the chief accusation came down to, and is up there with the other accusations about the numerous people that I've supposedly murdered, that I am a treasonous person that should be tried under the Logan Act, which is really funny if you know anything about that, and that I am actually a vampire. Like, there are some people that think I am actually a vampire. It's great. Those ones are more fun. But seeing the fact that so many members of the media would just report on this instead of saying, like, oh, she was accused of sleep talking reviews, and then not following that up and just spreading the misinformation.
The weirdest conspiracy I have about me out there, and you know who caused this one and which group of weird fans have it, but there's this guy that targeted Jesse and I, and his fans decided that I am secretly Jewish and control a streaming network I'm not on.
Yeah, I don't know. The weirdest thing someone said about me was I was white. Like, I was secretly white doing blackface. Yeah, I was like, this was on TikTok. I literally had so much comments that said, like, you're secretly white doing blackface. I think it's because they couldn't know, like, it was the combination of, like, me being, like, African as hell, like East African as hell, presenting, and then speaking in a Canadian voice, and then like, I don't know, like
they really said only white men can speak in a Canadian voice, as if not like most men I know in this province. Like, I know so many guys who speak with that exact accent, or like way more of a Canadian accent. I'm talking like a hockey accent that are not white. It's just that like people like genuinely don't think that non-white people live here.
Yeah. Which
says a lot about how they view us, honestly. No, like the weird conspiracy theories people make up about harassment targets, and they'll just decide they don't need evidence, they don't need anything. They can just Yeah.
Yeah.
Anti-Semitic conspiracies are so wild, and they pop up like anytime there's some sort of harassment campaign, or it's vile.
Yeah.
And it happens even amongst leftists. Like the person I'm talking about is a nominally, they say they're left, and people say they're left, but they're not. Creator, like, and their fandom, it was just like on Reddit being like, Aeronox secretly controls Nebula.
Yeah.
Because I edit for a few people on there, like it's so wild.
Oh my god, get me up a spot. What are you doing? Get me a spot. What are you doing? Like, if you really control that, if you really control.
I had that power. Do you think I wouldn't put my own channel on the streaming service? It's so
Like, for real. They seem like they having fun over there. What the hell?
like actually so wild that people just make up anything, and then a bunch of other people will be like, yeah, that's so true. They're literally the devil.
And it becomes a thing where they just keep adding on. It's like a bad game of telephone. Like it's awful. I've seen it happen with like some harassment campaigns where they've been harassed for just so much years. It's like I'm forgetting
you try to
what
look into
people
any
are
verification of any of the things people are saying, and there's just like none.
Yeah, right. But anyways.
One time he kicked my mom. Literally never been in the same city. Like
yeah. Like,
I think my favorite was reclaiming your body after sexual assault and things. I'm sorry. But yeah, like part of my chronic illness getting so bad this last year, partly is just that I've had a lot of people die. Both my parents got cancer. They're better, but it was rough for a while. I'm sorry. It's been tough. This point. But yeah, last year I have this piece for the Love Death Robots about SA and things. Last year Jesse really kindly flew me out to visit, and the TSA sexually assaulted me multiple times, and that's caused my health to spiral and a lot of people to abandon me because I haven't been available. But my point is, like, sorry, all these harassment campaigns, the lolcow culture, all that contributes to the societal oppression, degradation, and harm that I experience, and this culture of mistreatment, especially towards marginalized people, especially towards disabled people, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're multiply marginalized women. Like, obviously what I deal with is not at the same level that like my black trans femme friends deal with. Like but I really want to. But I just want to make this point that like I have support, and I've been lucky to have support, but a lot of people don't. And when this type of stuff happens and it traumatizes you and it leaves you less functional for the rest of your life, there's very little sympathy for that. And very often, these people just keep being harassed forever. And like, I've had harassment campaigns that lasted 3-4 years straight. Like, it sticks with you, and it really affects you, and it stays with you. And you don't just like magically get better. I hold every bit of abuse and violence that I've experienced across my life in my body, unfortunately. It's just a reality that I have to process. And and then, I mean, obviously throw on the extra stress that, like, our community's getting genocided in the U.S., that there's 5 other awful events happening every other day to various groups, because, like, I'm sorry, I don't know how you could not be affected by seeing bigotry towards those who aren't like you, let alone the bigotry towards people like you. Like, it's just, and as Lee Dyke said, the harassment campaigns aren't just online, they're still real, they still harm and kill people, they still make people feel comfortable causing harm. It's horrifying and disgusting, exactly. And I come back to this a lot, like, I talk about this a lot with, like, the influence that shows like South Park or Family Guy had on young kids to do violence to me when I was growing up is not small. When we create cultures and when it is allowed for art to perpetuate these violences, it becomes real world violence.
Yeah.
And the violence online is just as real and harmful, but it translates.
And a big draw to this is spectacle, specifically with how the alt-right or groups that have bad intentions are able to shift public spectacle, whether that's on marginalized groups as a whole or even topics. With things like the second chapters of the KKK in American lineage were spurred on by, this propaganda being played in the White House. What was it called? Someone knows that movie. I've talked about it sometimes in my streams. That racist movie about the KKK being played in the White House.
Oh, Birth of a Nation?
Yeah, Birth of a
Nation? I have a lot to say about this because I've researched it really heavily.
Birth of a Nation being played in the White House, spurring anti-black animosity. animosity to a general US public, which had even chapters in Ohio, whereas like black people weren't a thing in Ohio, you know what I'm saying? Whereas black people black or slaves were concentrated a lot in the South during Confederacy. But that narrative, that racial narrative of degradation and political, I guess, entrapment towards black people became reaffirmed when the spectacle was played in the White House. All of a sudden, these people in Ohio started thinking, oh, well, these black people act this way, X and X. And this has happened in a majority of countries in a majority of ways. I was watching this one video specifically on the communist revolution in Cambodia and how the Red Scare tactics or the propagandization of left-wing movements as these terrorist militias and whatnot actually gave power towards the right-wing mob that rose up from that because they were considered the good guys after that movie was popularized in a public spectacle in Cambodia. And I just want to say this is a very real tactic. But yeah, keep going. To
touch back on the direct effects of media into violence, let's be very clear about this. Every historian agrees that the reason the KKK was revived and continues to exist is the effect of Birth of a Nation. It is an extremely well-documented fact that Birth of a Nation alone was able to, and let's be clear that didn't mean that it created racists. It means that it galvanized and organized them. Let's be clear, that racism was already happening, but it revived it, right? Like, it revived the group. It revived the organizational structure. And I have this entire video about Death at the Author that dives into this, and it's why I researched this, and I would really recommend, I'm going to go find the exact source from that video, but there's a specific article from a really, really phenomenal professor whose name I am unfortunately blanking on right now, about the history behind, I'm just pulling up my sources document, sorry, the history behind it and like how it's still reflecting today, to this moment. So it should be, it's the article is from NPR. It's called 100 Years Later, What's the Legacy of Birth of a Nation? It was written by like a group of the staff, but it mainly highlights the words and statements of, where's the professor? I want to find him because he's great, and what he has to say about this is really, really Todd Boyd. Todd Boyd, he at the time of the article was the University of Southern California like cinematic arts professor, but he touches on like how Birth of a Nation still gets taught in universities to this day. And I'm sorry, but like I don't think you can neutrally present and go, oh, we should just ratify it for its filming excellence. A film that revived the KKK, but that's what happened. And yeah, Leila Dyke just said, you've been talking a lot on Blue Sky recently about how the New York Times affirms and approves genocides. I think a similar idea might apply here. Absolutely. All these things normalize and create an environment where this type of bigotry and hate is acceptable. Like, people want to believe that we aren't influenced by the words and things we hear, but we are. We really are. We're social beings. And when we spread art that creates hate, lolcow culture is just the modern Birth of a Nation. Like, just as racist, just as sexist, just as built on spreading hate and creating places like Kiwi Farms.
Mm-hmm. All right. I'm going to click play on this video. You ready?
Okay. I'm ready.
3, 2, 1.
It's like you could finish the sentence and say that the never happened. The never happened part seems kind of important, but what do I know? I'm just a time-traveling vampire hoe. Seeing big tech industries and people that I talked to that were in positions to help, that could press a button and make stuff actually not suck, go, well, I don't know about this. This death threat doesn't say what weapon they'd use to kill you. So, it's not actually a terms of service violation. But I'm sorry, we have to get back to like shutting down anybody who posts a GIF of the Olympics like immediately. My bad. And unfortunately, I decided to try to do something with law enforcement against my better judgment after they were brigading the IRS with false reports of tax fraud to get me audited. I'm like, okay, well, I probably need a paper trail in case this actually happens. And, it was like a constant state of shock at finding out how much of this worked. Like, Intel pulled ads from a blog that had nothing to do with any of this because somebody said games are really broad and there's no one gamer identity anymore because there's too many people who play games now, and that's great. This got turned into this weird, they're saying gamers are dead. They're literally someone's like, they're literally killing us now. It's like, no, it's a good thing that more, whatever. So like major companies like Intel and Mercedes-Benz and all of these people who should know better were bending the knees. So it kept being like, oh, okay. The people there's one thing to get mad at the baby that's driving your car. It's another thing to be mad at the person who gave them the keys in the first place. And then they're not taking it away. And the most shocking thing to me was like, while I did go the law enforcement route, was like, I knew things were bad, but I didn't know how bad, because I'm still like an easy victim for that system to support. You know, I'm like a younger white woman that's a home run for them in terms of what they think a victim looks like. But even then, it was still that same old systemic, oh, she was asking for it, and also we didn't actually do it, but also she was asking for it. I mean, have you looked at her? In addition to the fact that I went up to get this restraining order against my ex because he was talking about doing a sequel, because going on and encouraging them for the entirety of it while saying harassment is bad, but here's
I just want to pause really quick and say something about that, whereas we'll probably have a longer stream about that, specifically surrounding around Alyssa Liu. But that same aspect of fetishizing alt women as like women who quote unquote want it, you know what I mean? Like hypersexualizing marginalized people, placing them to gaslight them when you fetishize them. You know what I mean? It's a very weird thing. Sorry, I just wanted to say that. Okay.
I just want to speak about it for a second from my own experience of it. Is that like a lot of people, that it's one of the first things a lot of people say to you if you're a woman who's been sexually assaulted or mistreated is, what were you wearing? And that's not just like, oh, that's out in public. That's what happens in court cases. A lot of us don't come forward about who did things to us because we know we'll never get justice, and it'll just result in a long drawn out series of humiliation rituals and shaming rituals. And that's one of them. Is the like, oh, how you dress, how you present, means you want it, means you're sexual. And I think it's also worth noting that those alt culture symbols are almost always tied to queerness. We talked about that earlier, but like they come from a queer history. There is a hyper fetishization of queer women and of us deserving being fixed via sexual violence. Yeah, no, it's a frequent thing. All right, let's go back to the video.
Okay, 3, 2, 1.
I've slept with, and also here's like, you should look into these people. And actually, I'm saying the number's 100 now. I'm saying she cheated on me with 100 people, which is like, who has the time?
So why should I learn a language with
100 people is kind of I got into.
Like,
I'm just
especially
gonna say.
in 5 months. That's impressive. I went up to this judge with like a stack of legal documents like this big, and I'm like, I watched his face as he like solved because they in civil court, everyone's just kind of sitting around and they basically calling your number up, you go through the process, and they go on to the next one. He got my big stack of I had printed out so much stuff I actually broke my friend's printer. Because law enforcement doesn't know what to do with video either, even though I had video, even though a lot of this happened with videos. And I just saw his like eyes go like this after a few pages, and he's like, all right, what do you want me to do here? And I'm like, I don't really know. I kind of thought that was like your thing. And he had basically taken what I had said verbatim and written it as a special clause into the restraining order, which, if you know anything about the legal system, that is a really bad move. Hi, game developer who's like shaking and freaked out and is like holding a stack of death threats. Come up with complex free speech regarding legal terms on the spot. Also, we're not going to tell you. I thought he would translate it into like legalese or know anything, and that was not the case. And that restraining order meant that I was having court battles with my ex for 2 years. Even though the restraining order, the maximum that you can get in Massachusetts is 1, it was still that full time plus another year of having to fight this thing. That was the opposite of what I wanted. Like, I didn't want to see him anymore. But regardless, I could fill a number of books with just the blow-by-blow ridiculous anecdotes of stuff that happened. And especially since it's the internet, and especially because it became this pop culture thing, you know, like there's so much, it was like kind of hard to write this because it's like, do I talk about the time that a First Amendment attorney turned juice salesman who thinks his semen is literally magic spent 5 figures on a private detective to follow me and my boyfriend at the time? Or do I talk about the time that the Disturbed's lead singer, David Draymond, ruined my breakfast? All of these things sound ridiculous when I say it out loud like that, but then again, how many people have a breakup so bad the UN has to get involved and it helps usher in fascism? Regardless, that's not what this book is, though. I decided to write this book partially after loudly on Twitter enough that someone noticed and was like, no, you should actually write that book, though. But mainly because, I'm still an engineer at heart. And when I have to do something over and over and over, I'm like, can I automate this? That would be better. Can I get a robot to do this for me? So it seemed easier for me to just put it all in dead tree format, because if nothing else, it became so apparent to me that what happened to me was not at all uncommon. And yes, how it blew up and the historical role that it played is weird. But, it's kind of like finding your food at a restaurant I don't know. I should have asked if I could swear. Okay, good. Thank God. Yeah. Sorry, C-SPAN. But it's like finding your food at a restaurant. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit or if you even just know that there's some somewhere in there versus if you eat an entire turd sandwich. You're not going back there. It's bad. It's all bad. So it doesn't, I hear too many people be like, oh, what happened to me wasn't, I don't want to compare it. It's like, no, any is bad. It should be 0. And, what had happened to me became this gigantic public flashpoint. So many people were coming to me and being like, oh, I feel like you're the only person I can talk to about what happened to me. And I quickly, it wasn't until writing this book and talking with other people about it that it was pointed out to me that a common recurring theme in my life is that if something doesn't exist that I wish existed, I go out and make the thing instead of waiting for someone to do it for me. And I don't know if that's because I'm the daughter of a mechanic or what, but I'm thankful for that. So the last court date I had, the judge ended up telling me, if this is what I don't understand this whole internet thing. It's like, but if this is what it's like, you should just go offline. And I'm like, I'm an independent game developer. There's no offline version of that. You're essentially asking me to give up my career. And he said on his way out the door, like looking back, was like, you're a smart young kid, find a new career. So I did. I started a grassroots organization after 7 months of this, during which I'd been unable to go home. There were people outside of my house, like, waiting for me. And you kind of have to play this Schrodinger's Nazi thing. It's like, are they just some edgy Hot Topic asshole, or are they Elliot Rodger because they sound the same online? And I was tired of watching, I'm a game designer, I think in systems. And so the systemic failure was so obvious to me and became so predictable that even early on when other people were becoming targeted, we're like, we know what's going to happen. I found their IRC channels that they were coordinating a lot of the attacks in because I was a channer when I was younger too. I know what all of this feels like, where all of this comes from. I was super into hacktivism. I was one of those assholes that it's like, yeah, let's get Scientology when I was a teenager. So it's like, I know that the illegal happens in IRC. So I sat there and I monitored and I recorded it for weeks. And I got in front of the next targets every time I could and warned them in advance. You should lock down this, and this. They're probably going to do that next. Don't do this because that's like a way that they got my dad's phone number. Let's fix you up. And this turned into formalizing that to help more people other than people who were just targeted for a loose association of being suspected of maybe being in a room with me once, and became Crash Override. And it's like, okay, how do we build the solution or a solution? Because there's no one. And it's like, okay, we got to make sure that what we create can't be used to abuse other people. Because that was a big component of what happened to me, is stuff that's supposed to help ends up being used against you. So it's like, okay.
I can turn your wildest ideas into a song. Just describe it in a few words, choose a style, and let Mareka V.
Now let's craft it around consent and involvement of the person targeted, because that's the most important thing. The first thing that happens is you feel like you've completely lost control. And there's nothing that you can do better than to return some level of control back to someone's life in that case. So there's no one size fits all. Any response emotionally, any desires that you have to this stuff are valid. It doesn't matter if you want to hide. It doesn't matter if you want to speak out. Both of those are completely valid. And it makes me a little bit upset when people are like, it's so brave that you stood and fought. I'm like, I don't know. It was kind of stubborn, and I don't think it's not brave to be like this. I'm out. That just means that you can look at your own life and say, I actually do deserve better than this. So we would figure out what this person's end goal was and then work backwards for how we can achieve this. And every time we found ourselves having the same conversations over and over with people affected, we would try to, again, do that automation thing, write a guide, I'd use the same tools that I used to make games to make an interactive checklist of locking down, because it's so many people don't understand that when you're targeted, it's so much work. Even just bagging and tagging, if you want to do that, or filling out reports, it's work. And making that easier for people to do was super important. And we found better success rates if it was here are small things that you can do in a row. Here's a number that goes up when you do it, because our brains like that, and it's all here, and you don't have to talk to another person when you're probably freaked out and don't want to talk to anybody anymore. And a big thing we did was try to act as an intermediary between these giant institutions that I was very mad at and the people that were actually affected. And so someone would come to us and say, this is happening to me here. I'm like, okay, have you filled out a report? Do you want do you want action to be taken? And if they said yes, it's like, okay, I'm going to go try to hustle out a contact, because while the institutions were super broken, there were still people that wanted to do the right thing working within them. And anytime I could get movement because there was someone, a working person in a broken system that could get stuff done, that did so much to actually help people get the sort of results that they needed. And it was interesting how my writing in the second half of the book, which is entirely dedicated to my time working and trying to it's the first part's the crash part, the second part's the override part, because I'm a total dork, and then I like stuff like that. It became very clear that like as I wrote this and I did more advocacy because I've done client work. I say client, but we don't charge, up into thousands at this point. Like I've handled thousands of these cases personally and over the last 2 years. And that sucks. That like super gets to you, not because of seeing all that and being reminded of when it happened to you, but going to the people that can press a button and fix it, and then having to go back to that person and say, they saw, they didn't care. What do we do now? What do you want to do now? And, there's a lot in the book that I'm going to be in trouble with for saying, but the thing with a lot of these institutions is they trade access for silence. And sometimes you have to burn a bridge that you're still standing on so they know you're not around anymore. And I don't know if it does that, but I'm trying to hope, gotta have that hope. So as depressing as it is to like look at these massive institutions that are failing us and see things like too many people wanting the solution to be more law enforcement when it's the inverse is true, because people who are not white are disproportionately targeted, and we live in a country where the cops are more likely to kill you than help you in that regard. And beyond the fact that we have a punitive system where it punishes offenders and doesn't, instead of protecting targets, and the speed of these things it's like overnight, you can go to hell and never come back, just in internet time. But then these, the law enforcement bodies move so slowly, it's years later when anything happens. And then it's usually like you're doing it to make a point, not because it'll actually help. So it sounds bleak that basically everything is broken and nobody's doing what they should be doing. But the inverse is true too, if you think about it. Because we do not have to wait for institutions, and we should not.
This is so true. Like, being victimized in that way is very, very isolating. A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people don't want to understand it. And a lot of people just do, as she says, like, oh, just get offline, And these institutions do, if they ever move so slow, and they don't care about you as an individual. They don't care about people in general. And it creates this dynamic where you're very isolated, and having systems in place that look after each other. And what she's saying here doesn't just apply to this context, it applies to many contexts. It's what we see in Minneapolis, right? And that is still happening. A lot of people are pretending, because the news org stopped caring about it, that like Minneapolis isn't still being targeted by ICE. It is. I have friends that live there that are still participating in these organizing actions, but it truly is just like, almost always you can do a lot more for your community directly than any of these institutions ever will, if they'd ever do anything. I just want to kind of I want to highlight that is not just one situation, all situations. Very important to make.
And I like the fact that she kind of talked about the just hop off line clause, because that just means you're capitulating to fascists. You know what I mean? Like, you're just saying, let it happen, right? Like, telling all these like very far spanning like internet figures, you know what I'm saying, that help combat systems of bigotry directly just by being them, just by being a presentable face, for a public. Telling them just get off the internet, that's just going to proliferate more space for more white supremacists, right? And more right-wing, eventually, talking points like the mogging people, the lolcows, you're just ceding more and more ground. So like, at what point are we gonna be like, we need to etch plausible space for marginalized people that has a good censorship system around it, where you can report racism, where you can talk to people about misogyny, transphobia, and whatnot, and have it be like applicably applied into those, algorithms. I like the way tech is set up right now, like, Twitter, Meta, and Snapchat owning almost everything. It kind of seems like impossible, but the fact of the matter is we are going to need those spaces for marginalized people in some way, and that's the sad part about the internet, that they're just not there.
No, and again, the whole goal is always to get women to shut up and disappear ourselves. And this thing of, oh, you're being harassed, get offline, that's the goal. That's the goal of these harassment campaigns, is to unperson us and remove us from the public eye completely, to get rid of our position within the public. And it's why I'm so sick of, like, it's a rebrand of, like, what were you wearing? Mm-hmm. Well, why were you studying online? Mm-hmm. You're getting harassed.
Right.
It's like,
right.
And the thing I think people need to understand too is that, like, I'm just going to talk about YouTube comment systems, the way I think about them for a second. But to me, your YouTube comment section is like, it's your space. It's not a public forum. go to Reddit, go to Twitter if you want a public forum. My comment section is my comment section, and if you come on my lawn and start calling me slurs or saying awful, you're gonna be gone because you don't deserve to have that space. And what's wild is that people will just be like, oh, you should just ignore it and let them be awful in your space. And I'm like, you know, it doesn't just affect me, right? Like, I can't just ignore my comment section because the 15-year-old trans person and this, there's been a lot of teenage trans people that have reached out to me, but I think about those people, those teenage trans people that follow me, and I think about them going into the comment section and looking at newest. I do not want them seeing that. I don't want them to go into my space and see horrific bigotry that hurts them, that traumatizes them, as we've talked about. Like, slurs, bigotry, all this stuff is physically traumatizing. That is not an opinion. It is a well-documented aspect of how bigotry affects you.
And Dr. Deadwood said, why is the internet allowed? Why is the internet allowed if you think there's something inherent that it should be violent towards marginalized people? Well, I feel like the inherence of that violence on the internet is allowable because that inherence of violence is allowable on a day-to-day basis. You know what I'm saying? It's not like
it's this thing of like,
yeah, it's not like
exceptional.
Yeah,
it's just society.
It's not like homophobia hasn't been a thing that's been ingrained in different communities and different commonalities in different ways since the beginning of the Americas. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like the aspect of masculinity and femininity, feminine projection, masculine projection being shifted throughout time to display a public spectacle that fit the material reality of what was going on isn't a real thing. It is a real thing, right? Like the fact that when work culture was happening, the men of spectacle were men in suits and ties, right? Which symbolized something. While at the same time, the material everyday reality was basically telling men to take on these jobs in order to procure or secure an American dream, which, you know, doesn't really ever happen. Stay stagnant. Billionaires get more billions of dollars. But that aspect of masculine and feminine placement has changed over the years. And when we're talking about the modern day aspects of feminine art that we quote unquote like praise in the algorithm that gets the most likes and whatnot, a lot of them are from a minority of femme women who cater to a misogynistic landscape that degrades other femmes around them. You know what I mean?
And it's also worth noting, when people are participating in systems that harm them, that's not it's up and it's not okay of them, but remember every time you encounter that, that person's being harmed.
Yeah.
They're participating in their own harm, really.
Yeah.
And have some, I'm not saying forgive them or anything. It's not forgivable, but just, I'm always just of the opinion of most of the time when I see bigoted other marginalized people, people who are being pick-me's or whatever, it just depresses me.
Yeah.
Because it's damn, you hate yourself so much that you make it everyone else's problem.
Yeah, but there's so much incentive, right, to respectability politics, even online, that of course those people are the most forefront of the screen, right? When you're broadcasting to a wider audience, a wider public, it's just more likely a wider public is going to click on a token from a space that portrays a certain view that they want to hear, more so in a way that is digestible to them. And that's just actual content creation if we're getting into it. Yeah.
And I had a couple of good comments in my chat that I want to highlight. Ulamui, I hope I'm saying your name okay, said, I like that in YouTube and Instagram you can ban the use of certain words, so whatever hate speech there is, it's not able to be published. So I do that. I have a very extensive list of words that I have, wild dog whistles I hope none of you have to learn the meaning of type, because of just TERFs and stuff, and racists and other things. Because anytime I have any of my friends on videos that are marginalized, there's always people in the comments being, and you and I have done videos together, Anon and I have done videos together, so many of my friends over the years, and I just, under no circumstances do I want that in my space, even the possibility of it popping up in my space. I have every variation too, every variation they try to use to get around the censorship too. But my favorite dynamic in comment sections is that they'll leave a comment with one of those. It gets auto-flagged. I didn't do right? It's pure auto-flag. And then they'll leave a second comment oh, you're so mean and deleting comments. And I'm like, I don't know you. What are you talking about? I go check the held comments, and sure enough, slur. Sure enough, 41%. It's always that stuff. So yeah, I think more creators, especially big accounts, need to be using those automatic moderation tools. I do check my health just because sometimes people get caught for really reasonable stuff. Like, I have a lot of sanist words in there, but sometimes, like, people aren't trying to actively participate in sanism, but they'll call something crazy or insane or whatever, and I'm like, hey, that's not cool, but you don't need to be, like, banned and nuked into, or it's a marginalized person talking about their own experiences, and they happen to bring up a bigotry or something bigoted that happened to them, and that gets flagged. So if you ever do put a comment and you thought it was perfectly reasonable and it got, like, random deleted, it probably wasn't me, probably was the automated system. It might get put back up at some point. And then Iroka said, without moderation, the good people in forums and comment sections will leave because they do not want to deal with the loud bigots who are not getting punished. Exactly. And Hive Indicator called that a Nazi bar, and I agree. It's why Twitter is the way it is now.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's that same kicking out of everybody, right? Like all these minority voices who are having harassment campaigns on them. It's not like the alt-right is this all-powerful movement that's existed since the beginning of the internet. No, they had to etch a space and take so many creators down before they were solidified. And they continue to do that with multiple other creators. You know what I mean? Just taking down more and more leftists, or making more and more lolcows out of more and more trans people, while at the same time bolstering their own numbers off of the corpses of their, you know what I mean?
So this just reminded me of a perfect example of one of those dog whistles that I ended up having to ban because I just kept getting it, but it's really innocent. It's TIM. Seems reasonable, right? The name Tim. What could it possibly mean? But TERFs use it to mean trans-identified male. It's a way of misgendering trans women. So I was getting a lot of TERFs saying that in my comments, so I had to ban Tim. And so there's been a few times where people tried to reference a character named Tim and got auto-held in lives or in YouTube comment section. And it sucks because I'm like, I can't take it off the list, or the TERFs can call me a Tim again. Like,
these medicalists, they use words for sure.
They use words.
They use words.
And Digital Beef said, in my experience, some of those strongest bigots are pick-me's too. They have to put a lot of extra work in to prove that they're one of the good ones. Oh yeah. Bigoted, marginalized people will overperform it to try to get acceptance. Like, yeah, it's wild how much performance goes into bigotry and about, like, existing in bigoted spaces. Like, people talk about virtue signaling, and then you go to bigoted spaces and it's like, that's virtue signaling, or vice signaling is more accurate, right? Like, they're constantly having to prove to each other that I suck too!
Yeah.
Trust me, guys! I'm a terrible human being! It's like...
Okay.
That's an awful way to live.
You want to get to finishing this video?
Yeah.
20 minutes away.
It's a long one.
Yeah, I think after this, like, I'm going to
valuable.
wrap up the stream because we're about to hit 4 hours. Or do you want to keep going?
Why don't we do, you know, like, I think we've gotten a lot out of talking about the video already. And if people want, I think maybe we can just tell people we stopped at 20 minutes and here's the link if they want to watch the rest. And we could do some of the Jackbox stuff we talked about or something.
Mm-hmm.
Just for something, I think we all deserve. We've talked heavy stuff all day.
I do want to do the Jackbox thing though, but there is a certain time limit that was in my head when I was
in your head. Yeah,
so
I don't want to take anything, so
yeah.
If we're already too late, we're already too late, and that's chill.
No. I'm down to. I would like to keep playing like at least a portion of this to get there. Like
okay. Let's watch a little bit more of the video then.
Okay.
But I'm also going to share the link to my chat. I think you should do the same, and then that way, people want to finish out.
No, for sure.
Yeah, it's. I also just want to say, because I have researched Zoe Quinn before, I've talked about her work before, and one of the things that really bothers me the most about how people treat her and talk about her is that they just mention, like, oh, she got harassed, and it's like, but they don't talk about the work she does for survivors. They don't talk about all the journalism work that she's done over the last decade that's, like, really valuable. They don't talk about the feminist literature she's written about, like, both her and Anita Sarkeesian have written about how gaming groups function, how hatred in the gaming space works, how representation is done. Like, I couldn't have done as good of a job as I did on that video game avatars video we did together if it wasn't for the work of Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian, which I directly quote several times in that video. Like, yeah.
All right, ready to play?
Oh, I'm sorry, Iroka. I didn't know Zoe Quinn uses they them. I that was a serious mistake on my part. I apologize. And by some weird chance that they see this, I am very sorry. I genuinely didn't know that. That doesn't make it okay.
Okay. We ready? 3,
ready.
2, One.
Wait for institutions to give a shit about us. We have to take care of each other. That was the biggest thing I saw doing this work, is just having someone around that understood and could talk to you and wouldn't just say, go offline, or wouldn't just say, oh, well, it's like the equivalent of, oh, there's people on your lawn that want you to die, just use the back door, it's fine. Everything's fine. Having that in their life and people that can do that sort of help and help with just the workload would be a better predictor of a more positive outcome than any action taken by law enforcement or tech platforms or anything, and that was immediate. So people with good support networks and that had some kind of savvy to either the social aspect of what was happening or the tech aspect, having that in their life was better than anything anybody that had like institutional power could do for them in that moment. So now I am passing on the savings to you. And by that I mean like there are multiple chapters dedicated to here's how you do it. I'm tired of being the person that has to do it. Because like if you think about it, the problem is people. The internet's Soylent Green, it's people. Which means that we can be the solution too, and we do not have to wait for institutions. Because if nothing else, at least the trash fire of this current election, I feel like it's harder than ever for people to deny that it's broken. And we got to take care of each other. And it's just like, okay, how do we teach people that are new with that how to come on board? How do we do that with like an eye towards restorative justice instead of like recreating punitive systems that end up just shuffling around harm? How do we do this in a way that minimizes compassion fatigue, which is like a term, but you know exactly what I mean when I say it. It's
I have a 134 IQ. I make less money than friends who barely passed high school. Here's what I finally discovered. Last week.
Yeah, basically we are both the solution and the problem. And the thing is, the heavy lifting on fixing broken systems almost always falls to the people actually being harmed by them. And that needs to change. It has to be everybody. It's an everybody problem. Sometimes that means having to take aside an uncle at Christmas and be like, look, you're being... Sometimes that means being the friend they talk to. Sometimes it means just not doing things like spreading misinformation before checking it, especially because that's such a huge thing now and people are more aware of it. All of these things are doable, though. They're doable and it's stuff that we can do today. It's not something that we have to wait for a cultural shift for. It's not something that we can put off and say is someone else's problem. That's something we can do today and now. And so, I want to see a future where we're all actively in this together instead of just we are in this together regardless whether we like it or not. But we accept that responsibility and we are our brothers and sisters and siblings keepers. And the people that are targeted are not basically forced into activism and forced out of whatever they were doing before that, and they get that humanity back. Because it's like a full-time job being targeted. If you try to do anything else, it follows you there. If you try to do anything else, the reputation follows you there. That was a big thing that I was super worried about with this book. Because it's like, I want the Gamergate thing to be a footnote. Because at my heart, I'm still like, if a centaur, the bottom part was dad jokes, and the top part was like butt jokes, that's me. Like, I'm not fit for public consumption in this way. I was never trying to be like some Clinton or anybody in the public eye. Like, I'm like, no. I think I tweeted a few weeks before this all happened that I wanted to be the Oscar Wilde of video games and just throw out stuff atop a throne of boys. That's me. And, I've talked to so many other targets and their humanity has been taken away from them in that regard. And you get this hyper scrutiny of your own actions on top of the scrutiny from other people. And being able to just be a person should not be a privilege. That is a right everybody should have. And basically suffer us witches to live.
Should we pause?
Yeah. Can I do Q&A and leave on a good line?
Yeah, I do want to pause here. I do want to actually finish here and tie this just into like a conclusion. We are going to be playing games after this, so don't go yet. But I want to tie this into the
hangout time after the heavy talks for 4 hours.
Yeah, I want to correlate this to specifically how millions of viewers correlate spheres of content and overall perceive them as the same. And that Overton window is expanding and expanding in spaces, right? It's expanding in masculine spaces, whether you're talking about fitness influencers. It's expanding in feminine spaces to different degrees when you're talking about the rise of trad wives, the rise of tokens, the rise of even like transphobic tokens, right? In today's YouTube age, there's obviously leftist alternatives and algorithms which would give you more positive discussions on spectacle. Notably, I have some people here, Elliot saying, Lil Bill, FD Andrew is Jesse Gender, Soul Bunny, Noah Sampson, friend of the channel. Yeah, however, the term leftist here, I want you to simply forget about it and be yourself for this conversation, right? When met with the means of reality, the harms of hurt when it comes to an everyday day-to-day in a verbiage, right, have caused us to want to make a change, right? How have those harms of hurt in that Overton window of expansion, how is it seen in your spaces? That's the question I have for the audience, because a lot of people, you know, have revisionist history around this time. A lot of people have rebranded from this time, like Joji, Filthy Frank.
A lot of people, they participated, and now they just get to like dance around like it never happened.
Yeah. iDubbbz people. I love iDubbbz, by the way. And iDubbbz, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry, but you're being used as an example. But how has this kind of shift in culture affected y'all on a day-to-day level? And I could let you go first on that if you want, Aaron.
Talk about which, little brain moment.
How the Overton window of bigotries have affected you in day-to-day
I'll say this.
life.
I have felt increasing isolation as a trans woman from my own communities and things, just because like I'm gonna talk about Tumblr for a second, and to a lesser extent Twitter way more, but I do feel like over the last 2 years, not that this has always been a problem for trans women, especially for trans women that are neurodivergent in some way, of becoming lolcows, all this stuff, but like truly the pastime of the internet now is context collapsing and then harassing a trans woman to an extreme degree. And we're seeing it like literally this week on Blue Sky a lot. But I've been noticing it happen more and more on Tumblr, where people are just pretending like they're finding like faux progressive ways to say heinously misogynistic. They are targeting trans women then and pretending like it's a social justice method of like engaging. It's like you're literally trying to rip someone out of the ability to get support or connect with their community or get mutual aid access. We're seeing it with people making like block lists that literally just target Palestinians and trans women on Blue Sky. You know, it's just an ever increasing amount of like the way I feel right now as a trans woman, the way I feel like a lot of people are treating us is like, God, can't you whiny shut up already?
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing that. And they're acting like everything's fine and sexism and transphobia died 10 years ago. While stuff passed, like I'm sorry if I get upset about this, but like just in the last couple weeks, let's just look at Kansas. Just Kansas. Kansas made it illegal for us to have driver's licenses. No, you can't have them as trans people. You can get a replacement that outs you, but you can't. All your driver license, which means that, hey, guess what? Really easy to arrest us, right? Really easy to illegalize us just like literally driving on the road. Oh, okay. So what happens when we get arrested? We get thrown in the prisons. We don't want to know what happens in the prisons now? They've legalized experimenting on us. They legalized that. They are literally, not that we haven't always been treated like garbage in prisons, and I will talk about V-coding in a second, but like they are literally right now increasing ways to literally just arrest us for existing in public, going to the bathroom, driving, all these things, right? All these different states and things are passing stuff that makes it so they can arrest trans women. They are trying to pass stuff that literally makes it so us existing in public counts as sexual assault. So we can be then put in the most extreme forms of prison, right? Where we can then be detransitioned and experimented on. And I don't know if a lot of people don't talk about this, but trans women, if we get put in prisons, experience something called V-coding. I can only talk about this in a very loose terms online, because just discussing what it actually is would probably get this video like demonetized, blocked, everything.
Yeah.
But basically, a trans woman gets forcibly used as a sexual plaything for all the men in the prison. That's what they do to us when we go in prisons. I live with existential, horrific fear that because I can't afford to get a gender change, if anything ever happens to put me in jail, like, and again, shit can just happen to you because you're a trans woman, not because you've actually done anything. Look at how the laws are changing to make it illegal for us to exist, right? It can just happen, right? So then we get thrown in the prisons, and we get repeatedly, I can't say the word out loud because the platform won't allow it. Great censorship, right? But people can call for that happening to me on these platforms, and they won't get banned. You know? And while that's all happening, everyone in progressive spaces is like just increasingly treating trans women like awful, annoying, whiny for talking about how we're getting treated, about the extreme misogyny we're getting treated with. If I have to see one more person trying to argue that misandry is a real major problem for society and that misogyny barely exists anymore, I'm gonna lose my mind. Because it hurts. It's exhausting trying to constantly convince your own community that the harassment and mistreatment you experience is okay. I know. And people love to do this thing when you talk about it, they're like, oh, just get offline then. Do you want to know how many trans women I know that are getting constantly mistreated in organizing spaces, IRL? It's not small. and it ain't new. A lot of trans women go into organizing, do a ton of really good stuff, and they get dumped and dropped, and then the things that we were organizing fall apart because we're not there to do it. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. There's very, very little social power that we have in any dynamic, in any context. And, like, I don't even know what to say. Like, people are mass harassing trans women right now on Blue Sky just for saying that, like, working at the New York Times isn't cool and maybe don't get someone's revenge porn posted to them. Ooh, we're so rude for that one.
Yeah, and I always tie this into specifically, like, biopolitic and how people are allowed to be marginalized. It extends to a peer-to-peer aspect of a quote-unquote like perfect citizen, like a white cis a masked citizen. Like, I definitely have had to see multiple of my cousins like go to jail off the weirdest charges. I've definitely been profiled a million times, had cuffs placed on me for the weirdest reasons. You know, I've been carded a million times. I didn't even know that was illegal until like 2 weeks ago, like a million times. Like, these things very much happen because there's a narrative reality that allows those functions to take place, that allows those predictable methods of victimization that we feel is marginalized people to happen in reality, right? And that's something I want to relate to the audience too, that the spectacle of narrative reality is so powerful, right? Like, the aspect of lolcow culture isn't just this little separate thing. No, it's something that gets fascists elected. It's something that instills very real harmful policies. It's something that will continue to degrade and marginalize people on further boundaries and extends to a biopolitic, to a white cis man, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to be abundantly clear that, like, all of these systems affect people who are multiply marginalized more. Like, trans women who look like me were being harmed, but not to the same degree or frequency that our Black trans sisters, our Indigenous trans sisters, our Latina trans sisters are experiencing. And the other thing that I really want people to start getting is just, one, that, like, marginalized men can be misogynistic. People keep pretending like that's not possible, and I feel like I'm losing my mind, as if... Or vice versa, like people trying to pretend like white trans women can't be racist. There's plenty of white trans women that are very racist, and it's a huge problem, and it's been something I've been talking about since my Matrix video on YouTube, and been talking about on Twitter since I was on Twitter. Like, I have pissed off other trans people for talking about the racism in our community many a time, because people just don't want to talk about intersectionality, and they don't, it bothers me. It bothers me. Being marginalized doesn't magically make you morally good. Being marginalized doesn't make you incapable of perpetuating the systems around us that harm us. And all of us, everyone has to keep continuously trying to deconstruct the ideology that has been beamed at us since the moment we were born. Because the moment we're born, we start inheriting these ideologies and practices of bigotry, whether we want it or not. And you're not immune to propaganda. You're not special. You probably unconsciously believe, like, there's times where I'll find out something new and it's not like obvious how the thing was bigoted, but the misinformation, like, common thing is bigoted, and you have to, like, really dig into some specific history to even learn those facts or to really understand those facts. And the other thing I want people to really start learning and understanding in these spaces is that, like, and I hate when people say that when you criticize the behavior of privileged people, you are essentializing it inherently. It's not. I'm mad at privileged people because they choose this. They choose to be awful. They choose it. They don't have to be like this, and then they choose to be like it. And they can choose to change. And if they do, great. I really just care about who people are today. I do think that, like, there's certain actions and things that someone does that are extreme enough that you need to maybe have some caution with engaging with them. Absolutely. But I care about who people are being today, and because, like, I'm sorry, I truly do not believe that anyone has ever been perfect about all these things and never makes any mistakes and never has an unconscious bias or a thing we're not aware of. I think a lot about perceptual studies in terms of bias, right? And how, like, regardless of gender, everyone views women as taking up more space in conversations than we do. Even if you time it out that we take less, we'll still be perceived that way. And there's a lot of other perceptual studies that touch on racism in this way, or touch on transphobia in this way, or touch on ableism in this way. Like, for example, a lot of people, even if they don't know someone's autistic, will just have, like, an unnerving feeling towards them that's subconscious, and a lot of people will act on that because of it, because they, like, ableism transphobia, all these things, they compound, they interwork, they interrelate. And to fight one of them, you have to be able to fight all of them. And I feel like there's a lot of like people trying to kind of silo things or pretending like we can't care about multiple issues at the same time. The BAFTAs was a perfect example of people doing that, where people were pretending like you can't care about the ableism and the racism. And a lot of people pretending like we should only care about the individuals and not like the BBC and BAFTAs doing horrible with how they handled that. They didn't do the accommodations they promised. They lied to him. They mic'd him without telling him. They didn't warn the black presenters what might happen. They, again, used a mic to make him louder. Just saying. He was at the back of the room trying to be quiet, and he knew that this might be a problem. They mic'd him.
Yeah.
They mic'd him! And they edited out every other tick to make it seem like he did that one singular one and none of the other ones. But he was ticking the entire night, right? And then it just creates this thing where people are trying to act like these communities are at odds with each other, as if black Tourette's, like people with Tourette's that are black don't exist, you know? Like, as if they don't exist, but they do. And I think that's a big problem of how a lot of people are moving right now, is just a lot of refusal to acknowledge bigotry, a lot of, oh, great, it's now okay for me to say these awful things again, right? We see that with the R slur getting used more often by people, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, and this is worth noting, Starbush said they censored Free Palestine. They censored Free Palestine.
Yeah.
But they didn't censor that.
Asdif said black people and disabled people will unite against the real enemy, the UK.
Exactly.
Okay, I think that's a good place. I think that's a good place to end it.